Chapter 187. Furthermore, when Ancestor was born, we asked the clairvoyant master to calculate that Ancestor's future husband would be the one who would take out the Lucci zither. As you know, this was calculated by the clairvoyant master at the cost of 30 years of his life. Generally speaking, there is absolutely no mistake. For the Qin family, even as her father, I have wronged Ancestor. Qin Xian raised his head to look at the waning moon above his head. The falling moonlight carried traces of sadness and beauty. He was the head of the family and had to consider the entire family. The mission of the Qin family was related to the fate of countless living beings. There was absolutely no room for error. If there was a mistake, the Qin family would be sinners for eternity. This was a crime he could not bear, and no one could bear. Husband, what do you think of this D. Shirtion? Madame Qin did not seem to want to talk about the previous topic and suddenly changed the topic to D. Shirtion. Qin Xian pondered for a moment and shook his head. I still can't see through him. In the past 3 months, he has indeed been learning the zither in a well-behaved manner. Other than learning the zither, he has been cultivating in his room and has almost never left the valley. It seems that he has the appearance of an ascetic cultivator. Moreover, his cultivation is rather restrained. It seems that he is only at the foundation establishment stage, but his true strength seems to be shrouded by a layer of fog. It is very strange. A strange expression appeared on his face. It was definitely rare in his life that he could not completely see through someone after observing for 3 months. Forget it. Perhaps he is really just a zither lover. What he is learning is the ordinary zither skills of a mortal world. He has also taken out a valuable gift. When he is done learning, he should leave on his own. Qin Xian could only say so. In any case, in the Guqin Valley, even if someone really wanted to cause trouble, they might not be able to do anything. And on the other side, after Katomi left, D. Shirtion was also afraid that someone would suspect, so he directly laid on the table and slept for the entire night. When it was almost dawn, the sound of a zither suddenly rang out in the valley. Huff! Although he was sleeping, the demon-smelting cauldron inside of him never stopped working. It continued to refine the body inside of the cauldron. Before he knew it, he had already refined a fifth of the body. Opening his eyes, D. Shirtion picked up the blanket that was draped over his back. There seemed to be a trace of fragrance left on it. Looking at the blanket, thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind. A complicated look appeared in his eyes. After a long time, he shook his head and smiled bitterly before putting it into his bag of holding. Ding-dong, ding-dong. The melodious sound of the zither slowly spread out in the valley, like a small spring flowing out. It contained an aura that calmed one's mind, making the listener feel as if they were beside a quiet stream, listening to the stream flowing. His state of mind became inexplicably tranquil, and his entire soul was elevated by the zither music. What song is this? D. Shirtion listened carefully for a moment. His eyes suddenly revealed a kind of bright light. His body suddenly stood up. His heart was like a violent wave, rolling violently. He seemed to be very concerned. His expression kept changing. This song can actually dissolve the sorrow in my meridian of sorrow. What song is this? It has such a miraculous power. That's right, when he was listening to this song, his mind suddenly began to have a tendency to gradually merge with the sadness emitted by the meridian of sorrow. His mind could feel the sadness, but he could maintain his mind and will and not sink into it. This was simply inconceivable. One had to know that all this time, in the past few months, he had been thinking of all kinds of methods, but there was no way to completely fuse with the sadness emitted by the sorrow meridian. This sadness came from the sorrow meridian, and it was impossible to get rid of it. Moreover, if it was removed, it would not be called the sorrow meridian. There was only one way, and that was to fuse his state of mind with the sadness, so that his state of mind could be compatible with the sadness. Only then would he not be affected by it, and the true sorrow meridian would be completed. At that time, there would be no need for the Lucci Qin to suppress it, and he would be able to freely absorb the power of sadness between heaven and earth. At that time, the sorrow meridian would truly belong to him, and the sorrow meridian would be completed. Then, he would be able to create a second demonic meridian. Tion did not expect that the hidden danger that he had not been able to solve after thinking of countless methods would change because of a song. How could he not be moved? I must get the score of this song. In an instant, an idea appeared in his mind. This was a completely subconscious action. As long as he got the score, it meant that the hidden danger in his body could be eliminated. It meant that he could continue to improve. In his heart, there was a natural desire to possess. His body moved, and he walked in the direction of the sound of the zither, listening as he walked forward. He felt that his state of mind was able to maintain tranquility in the power of the zither, like a clear mirror without a speck of dust. Only when he was in contact with the sadness could he maintain a clear state of mind and not be affected by it. He slowly experienced the artistic conception in it, and under such circumstances, he could slowly fuse with the sadness. It was wonderful. Step by step, he walked forward. Unknowingly, he had already passed through the purple bamboo forest. An elegant villa appeared in front of them. This was the Qin family's villa. In front of the door, an old man was sitting on a chair. He was listening to the sound of the zither, looking very natural. He didn't seem to have the slightest bit of Zhen Yuan on his body. It was as if he was just an ordinary old man. His hair and beard were all white. However, when Tion arrived in front of the villa, the old man opened his eyes naturally and sized him up. His eyes suddenly shone with a strange light. After a long time, he nodded and said, "You are the little guy who came to the Zither Melody Valley to learn the zither, but not the zither attacks. You look good, but you are not a disciple of the Qin clan, so you cannot enter the villa." These were very ordinary words, but in Tian's ears, his heart unconsciously tightened. He felt that if he disobeyed, something bad would happen. Naturally, he did not think that the person guarding the door was an ordinary person. He stood in front of the door, not moving forward, and just listened to the zither quietly. The sound of the zither lasted for a while, then slowly faded away. He opened his eyes, looked at the old man in front of the door, and asked, "Excuse me, old mister, what is the name of this song?" There was a trace of humility in his voice. "Young man, it is good to be humble. This song is called the Heart-Cleansing Bodhi Song. If you listen to it often, it can get rid of your inner demons, keep your mind clear, and cleanse your soul. It can get rid of irritability and other benefits. It can also purify evil energy, demonic energy, fierce energy, and so on. When cultivated to a high level, one song can purify the souls of the dead." The old man looked at Sakura with a meaningful gaze and said with a smile that was not a smile, "Little fellow, if you want to join the Qin family, then, not to mention the heart-cleansing Bodhi song, you can even learn other tunes. Many thanks." When Tian heard this, he shook his head, thanked the old man, and turned to leave. During this period of time, he had faintly sensed that the Qin clan was definitely not simple. Their existence was even more mysterious. Just the little things he heard last night made the Qin clan even more difficult to understand in his heart. Mission. What exactly was the mission? A mission that the Qin clan had been guarding for generations was definitely not an ordinary secret. And the power that was truly hidden after the inheritance of such a clan was definitely unimaginable. On the surface, it did not seem like much, but with his sharp senses, he could faintly sense that there was an unbelievably powerful existence in the Qin clan. The heart-cleansing Bodhi song is very useful to me. I must think a way to get it. Otherwise, the hidden danger in my body will be difficult to resolve. Tian secretly made up his mind. No matter what method he used, he had to obtain this song. Sister Tian Xiang, come quickly. Brother Yuan's monkey wine has been brewed. In the myriad Demon Valley, Tian desperately improved his strength while silently learning skills. Everyone in the valley could be said to be holding back their energy and seizing every inch of time to constantly improve their strength. In the past 3 months, Chi-Ho relied on his own accumulation and the foundation he had all along to open his third meridian, completely unobstructing all the meridians in his body. He had reached the realm of meridians throughout his body. As for Bai Yu, Kong, and the others, they had already opened their second meridian and were attacking the third meridian. Each of them was using their incomparable spirit to improve their strength so that they could help their king in the future. Little White, with the direct guidance of Baihu and various medicinal pills, could be said to be the fastest in the valley. With Baihu's protection, in just a few months, he had broken through 2 meridians in his body. Now, he was consolidating his foundation. As long as his foundation was consolidated, he could continue to attack the third meridian. In her heart, she also thought that she could help her brother. On this day, Little White ran excitedly to Baihu's cave residence and shouted. His mouth was full of joy. Baihu opened her eyes and saw Little White. She smiled and hugged him in her arms. She didn't know why, but although Little White was also cultivating, the growth of his body was quite slow. There was almost no change, which was surprising. That little monkey actually brewed the monkey wine so quickly. That's good. Let's go take a look. This batch of wine seems to be better than the previous ones. The monkey wine consolidates one's foundation and is the best spirit wine for building one's foundation. With the spirit wine, Little White, your cultivation speed will definitely be faster. Your foundation will also be more solid. Baihu's eyes also revealed a hint of a smile. The injuries in her body had not been completely healed until now. If she had this monkey wine, her injuries would recover even faster. Moreover, the spirit wine consolidates one's foundation and is very good for the body. Yes, if brother knew, he would definitely be very happy. Little White nodded vigorously in Baihu's arms, urging her to hurry over. However, he couldn't help but mention Dishurtian. Your brother still doesn't know how comfortable his life is in the human world. He actually left this mess to me. When he comes back, see if I will forgive him. Baihu curled her lips and scolded softly. However, there was an inexplicable emotion in it. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 188. Xiaobai blinked and stared at Baihu's face, which would make any woman jealous. She asked curiously, Sister Tianxiang, when Xiaobai was caught by the bad guys of the Thousand Bee sect, I heard them say that a man and a woman together are husband and wife. They also said that fighting is love and scolding is love. These days, Xiaobai saw that Sister often scolded my brother. Do you like him? Xiaobai asked in a childish voice with a trace of curiosity in her eyes. It sounded like a naive child asking about something she didn't know. Bah! Baihu's face flushed red. She reached out and patted Xiaobai hard. However, when her hand landed on Xiaobai's head, it was like she was gently stroking it. She said, Xiaobai, what are you talking about? How can I like your brother? How is this possible? She quickly denied it and snorted. It's still too early for your brother to be my husband. I, Su Tianxiang, will not like a demon clan member who is not as strong as me. Wait until he becomes an expert of the demon clan. While denying it, she couldn't help but question herself in her heart. Did she really have no feelings for Shurtian? Even she didn't have an answer to this question. Since Shurtian was gone, she often thought of him after she finished cultivating. When she thought of how he left a large number of subordinates in the myriad demon valley to her to take care of, she couldn't help but gnash her teeth in hatred. Hee. Sister Tianxiang's face is red. Xiaobai smiled and winked. Suddenly, a petite figure appeared in his mind. His expression slowly dimmed as he said in a deep voice, if only elder sister Zifei was still here. I hope that elder sister Fei is safe and sound. She thought of Zifei, who had always been the closest to her. She had searched countless times, but still couldn't find any trace of her. Okay, let's go to the little monkey's wine pool to take a look. A demonic wind blew around Baihu out of thin air. It wrapped them up and quickly rushed to the wine cave where Yuan Kong was. The brewing of the monkey wine was a ladder that could let all the demon clans in the myriad demon valley soar. There was absolutely no room for carelessness. Not long after, Baihu brought Little White to the entrance of the wine pool. Yuan Tian was jumping up and down excitedly in front of the cave. His two monkey claws were scratching his body, appearing to be unusually restless. Seeing Baihu arrive, he hurriedly said with a trace of respect, "Madam Baihu, the monkey wine has been successfully brewed. I was just about to invite you to see what should be done next." "Madam?" Baihu slightly frowned, but there was a faint trace of inexplicable joy in her heart. She did not deny it and said, "Well, let's go in and see. Yuan Kong, how much monkey wine is brewed this time?" The first thing that came to his mind was naturally the amount of wine. The amount of wine represented the foundation of the entire myriad Demon Valley. "Madam, His Majesty hasn't been around for a while, but my ape clan has been following His Majesty's instructions to collect gourds. We've collected no less than 5,000 gourds, and the wine we've brewed this time should be able to fill all of them. Leave behind a wine guide, and after filling it, we can immediately start brewing new monkey wine." Now, with the cultivation, the wisdom of Yuan Tian's subordinates was also increasing day by day, and they began to approach adults. However, their loyalty to Di Shutian had long penetrated into their bones, and there would never be disloyalty. In this regard, even Baihu had to admire Di Shutian's means and foresight. When he was in the Tiger Hill mountain range, he could think of subduing Bai Wei and the others when he was still a spiritual beast. The subordinates he subdued in this way were absolutely loyal. After subduing them, he used all kinds of means, kindness, and power to make all the subordinates abandon all disloyalty and really put everything on him. In the future, if the myriad Demon Valley grew stronger, Bai Wei, Yuan Tian, In Kong, and the others would all be the main subordinates under Di Shutian. In the future, they would all have a pivotal position. So much. Baihu could not help but be surprised, but then she was overjoyed. The more spiritual wine there was, the more profound the foundation of the myriad Demon Valley would be. Under the lead of Yuan Tian, they walked into the cave. The fragrance of the wine that came to their faces made them involuntarily excited. The qi and blood all over their bodies were active, and the fragrance of the wine contained a lot of strange power. When he saw the wine pool, he saw that it was filled with a golden, amber-like liquid. Looking at it, he couldn't help but have the desire to possess it. The wine fragrance was emitted from the pool. Baihu tasted it with a ladle and found that this batch of spiritual wine was really different. The power contained in it was not inferior to that of the 100-year-old monkey wine. It could be called the king grade of the monkey wine. It was no wonder that all the precious medicinal materials used in the wine this time, such as 1,000-year-old cinnabar fruit, ginseng, glossy ganoderma, and so on, each of them was an incomparably precious spiritual essence of the world. If the wine brewed in this way was not of the king grade, even God would not be willing. Without any hesitation, Baihu immediately ordered Yuan Tian to lead the monkey clan to put the wine into the gourd one by one, seal it, and move it to Di Shutian's cave residence. However, the wine pool could not be dried up. 1/5 of it must be left as a liquor. In this way, it would save a lot of time when brewing the second batch. Not to mention that the myriad Demon Valley had entered a stage of rapid improvement. A major event had also happened in China. China's old emperor finally died at the age of 50 because of a serious illness. The emperor only had 2 sons. One was Hua Wenwu, and the other was Hua Qing. Originally, Hua Qing wanted to use the power of the Hall of Worship to ascend the throne. However, the Hall of Worship was destroyed by Di Shutian, and Hua Wenwu was the legitimate heir. With his own efforts, he contacted all the ministers. Almost 90% of them were supporters of the imperial court. The rest were neutral, and the rest were people who colluded with Hua Qing. Naturally, strength had an absolute advantage. There was almost no accident, and he rightfully ascended the throne. This was only expected. It was normal for the throne to be handed over. Moreover, China was only one of the 3 countries in the East, and it was a world dominated by cultivators. Naturally, there would not be much of a reaction. What really shocked the entire China, whether it was cultivators or ordinary people, was the first edict that Hua Wenwu issued when he ascended the throne. The imperial edict was as follows. The East was divided into three, and the fighting between each other continued for thousands of years. There were countless deaths and injuries. However, all the people of China had never succumbed to any strong enemy for hundreds of years. Strong enemies were everywhere, eyeing them covetously. Their martial spirit could not be extinguished. Before I ascended the throne, I had gained experience in a mysterious mountain forest and was fortunate enough to meet the sacred beast Black Tiger. I was personally sought by the sacred beast and was bestowed with the bloodline of the sacred beast. Therefore, I shall have the bloodline of the sacred beast. I am the emperor of China, and the people of China shall be the descendants of the sacred beast Black Tiger. At this point, China shall have a totem. The sacred beast shall be the totem. The sacred beast shall protect the people of China. Unify the three countries. When this imperial edict came out, it could be said to be a heavy bomb that was thrown into the entire China. In the eyes of ordinary people, the sacred beast was a supreme existence like the immortal god. It was sacred and inviolable. It was definitely an incomparably glorious thing to have the sacred beast as the totem in one's own country. Moreover, after Hua Wenwu became the emperor, his actions could be said to be swift and fierce. As soon as the imperial edict came out, he immediately gathered all the skilled craftsmen in the capital and began to sculpt a statue of the Black Tiger that Di Shitian had once given him. It was to be erected in the center of the entire capital. According to the design, the statue was more than 30 meters tall. It had to be said that Hua Wenwu was quite smart. He knew that if he rashly made the totem, it might be resisted by the people of the whole country. Therefore, he changed his approach. First, he positioned Di Shitian's identity as the sacred beast. Then he said that he had the bloodline of the sacred beast and was the descendant of the sacred beast. He completely closed the relationship between China and Di Shitian. With this series of methods, it was much easier for the people of China to accept these changes. In the eyes of the superiors, the people were the easiest to fool. Their nature was even more simple. As soon as the imperial edict came out, many people began to accept it. What an honor it was to be the descendant of the sacred beast. Just based on this point, those who opposed had to think twice. After all, once the situation changed, the descendant of the sacred beast meant that he was superior and had a noble status. Therefore, Hua Wenwu's grasp of the people's hearts was beginning to mature. This move could be said to be a beautiful move. The matter of this totem was almost being perfected day by day. However, this was not what Di Shitian cared about. Ding dong. The purple bamboo faintly had a kind of mystery and nobility. The purple bamboo forest formed was unusually pleasing to the eye. In the bamboo forest, there was a bamboo house and a bamboo pavilion. In the pavilion, a man and a woman sat opposite each other. The man was dressed in a black robe, exuding a faint vicissitude and indifference. There was also a unique kind of majesty that made people feel restrained. The woman was dressed in a plain white lady's dress. Her face was covered with a white veil. Sitting in the pavilion, she looked unusually quiet. Her eyes were looking at the man, faintly exuding a trace of gentleness. The man and the woman were naturally Di Shitian and Katomi. The one who was playing the guqin was Di Shitian. His hands were constantly moving on the guqin, plucking the strings one by one. The sound of the zither was crisp and smooth. It made people feel as if they were in the middle of a high mountain and flowing water. However, in some places, the connection of a zither sound was a little jerky. What was even stranger was that there was a unique dominance in the zither sounds. It was only me. It made the guqin sound very different from the original song. This song was a secular guqin song called High Mountains and Flowing Water. Originally, the high mountains and flowing water should express the kind of natural and beautiful mood of nature, as if the feeling of being in the famous mountains and rivers, making people reluctant to go back. However, in Di Shitian's hands, it was completely different. The high mountains were mountains, What others played was the kind of scenery of famous mountains. What he played was a kind of peak that reached into the sky. The mountains and rivers were the kind of surging waves, as if one was in the middle of a surging river. It was simply the polar opposite. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 189. This might have something to do with Di Shitian's unique temperament and mentality. After all, it was impossible to ask a king of beasts or a tyrant of beasts to play such a lingering song. Everyone's style of music was different. Domineering and I alone seemed to be Di Shitian's style of music in the future. Katomi could not help but exclaim in her heart as she listened to this song. She did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. High mountains and flowing water, the artistic conception of being in the midst of famous mountains and great rivers was indeed intoxicating. However, Di Shitian's unique and domineering style of music also had its own unique charm. Her talent in the zither itself could be called a genius of a generation. She once had the magical experience of attracting butterflies to dance with a song. When it came to the zither, she had already reached the acme of perfection. Naturally, she did not have any rotten thoughts. Instead, she felt that this was very good. Everyone could have their own unique style of music. This way, they could truly form their own uniqueness. Ding dong! In the last note of the zither, it was as if a mountain had risen from the ground and peered straight into the clouds. Although the zither music stopped, the momentum still did not dissipate. Big Brother D, this high mountains and flowing water of yours is very unique. It has indeed played out a style that belongs to you. However, you are still a beginner after all. Your grasp of the tone and the rhythm of the strings are still a little shaky. Your technique is still not proficient. Overall, it's already very good. Katomi looked at Di Shitian. The gaze in her eyes was unusually gentle. A trace of affection was hidden in her eyes. She did not have any scruples about speaking out her own opinions about this song. Regardless of whether it was its strengths or weaknesses, she did not hide them. Di Shitian nodded. His gaze unconsciously moved away. He did not look at her for too long. Ever since he heard Katomi's confession that day, he could not accept it and could only pretend that he did not know. He treated it with his usual indifference. Miss Katomi, I've almost finished learning high mountains and flowing water. However, I've heard someone say that there's a song called Heart-Cleansing Bodhi Song that can calm one's mind when played. Why don't we teach you the next song? As Di Shitian spoke, he suddenly changed the topic to Heart-Cleansing Bodhi Song. He just wanted to test it out and see if he could learn this song through normal means. The Heart-Cleansing Bodhi Song was too important to him. After listening to it that day, he could clearly feel that his sadness was merging with his mind, and there was a tendency to find a balance. However, after the song ended, when he touched it again, he still had a terrible feeling of being trapped in a sad state. It was impossible for his mind to remain clear in the face of such intense sorrow. Without the protection of the heart-cleansing Bodhi song, the idea of fusion was just empty talk. This also made him realize that the heart-cleansing Bodhi song might be the only way to solve his hidden danger. He had no friendship with the other members of the Qin family. Usually, the disciples of the Qin family would cultivate in the villa or quietly learn various songs to cultivate their own sentiments. They did not have much contact with him. Apart from knowing Katomi, he really did not know how to learn this song from other people. However, after talking with the old man guarding the door, he also knew that this song might be the legendary song of Sound Attack. Such a song was a classic in the Qin family. How could it be easily taught to an outsider? After thinking of various ways, he could not come up with a good plan. He could only see if he could open a door with Katomi. Heart-cleansing Bodhi song. A hint of surprise flashed across Katomi's eyes. She glanced at Di Shitian and said strangely, "This song is one of the immortal songs. It's a song that my Qin family has never taught to outsiders. Very few ordinary people know about it. How did you know about this song?" The tunes of a secular world were categorized as mortal tunes in the world. Those tunes with mystical powers were called immortal tunes, and those of a higher level were naturally the legendary divine tunes. The seven sins divine melody in the ancient scroll that Di had obtained belonged to the divine category. Every song was divided into three grades: high, middle, and low. When Di heard this, his mind spun rapidly. He said, "A few days ago, when I was in the bamboo forest, I suddenly heard someone playing the heart-cleansing Bodhi song in the Chin family villa. When I heard it, I felt very comfortable and my entire mind felt very peaceful. I liked it very much, so I casually asked, if it's an immortal song of the Chin family, just pretend that I didn't ask. After all, I have an agreement with your Chin family. I only want to learn some ordinary songs from the secular world. I did not ask to learn an immortal song." Big Brother D. When Katomi heard this, her expression changed. She pondered for a moment, then raised her head and said, "Immortal songs are the foundation of our Chin family. They're very precious. If you are not an official disciple of the Chin family, it is impossible for you to inherit them. As a member of the Chin family, Katomi cannot violate this rule." There was a trace of apology in her voice. She did have some feelings for Di in her heart. If she taught him a song privately, it was absolutely impossible. Everyone had some kind of persistence in their hearts. In her heart, the importance of the family surpassed everything. For the mission of the family, she could even bear the pain of giving up her life's happiness. When Di heard this, he was not too disappointed. He hurriedly said, "You don't have to make things difficult for me. I was just saying, I would never dare to ask for immortal songs." However, Katomi suddenly gave him a pleasant surprise. She smiled and said, "Big Brother D, although I can't teach you the heart-cleansing Bodhi song, if you want to listen to it, Katomi can play it for you when I teach you every day." The morning was far away. After Katomi left, Di sat alone in the pavilion, looking up at the rising sun. His gaze was unusually deep. "Katomi, oh Katomi, I didn't expect that I would feel guilty for scheming against you. I really don't know how to face you in the future." He sighed inwardly. When he heard Katomi agree to play for him every day, he did not know why, but he felt an inexplicable sense of guilt in his heart. He felt guilty for taking advantage of a young girl's pure feelings. If he hadn't heard Chin Xian's confession back then, he definitely wouldn't have felt the slightest bit of guilt for what he did today. But the problem was that he clearly heard that the Chin family's eldest young miss actually had a good impression of him. Thinking about it, he really wished that he had passed out drunk back then. That's right. Most of today's conversation was within his calculations. After he returned, he thought about the heart-cleansing Bodhi song carefully. It must be the Chin family's secret. It would be extremely difficult to learn it. Therefore, after thinking about it for a few days, he finally came up with a compromise. He could choose not to learn the song. After all, if he did not play it himself, he could listen to others play it. It would still be effective. Therefore, he thought of Katomi. Others might not know this song, but Katomi definitely knew it. If he directly asked Katomi to play a song every day, he expected that Katomi would not refuse based on her feelings for him. However, doubts would be inevitable. If this attracted the attention of the other members of the Chin family, there would be the risk of being exposed. That was why he had made it clear that he wanted to learn the heart-cleansing Bodhi song, and had Chin bring up the idea of playing it every day. By swapping their roles, even if someone were to suspect him, he would be less of a suspect. In this, Katomi's feelings for him could be said to be the most important. In other words, Di completely made use of Katomi's feelings. To be honest, Di himself did not like such a method. In fact, he did not like it very much. Forget it. This time, I, Di owe you. As long as my hidden danger is eliminated, I will naturally return it to you. The hidden danger in his body needed to be eliminated immediately. He did not have much time to waste on the sorrow pulse. Therefore, he did not hesitate to bear a trace of guilt in his heart. This time, he wanted to use the heart-cleansing Bodhi song that Katomi played every day to eliminate the hidden danger in his body. This was the only way now. Otherwise, even if there were other ways to eliminate the hidden danger, he would not be able to find them in a short time. While he was deep in thought, suddenly there was a sound of footsteps. Hee, Brother D, Xiao Dai is here to see you again. Do you welcome her? He turned around and saw a petite figure walking over. She had a mischievous look on her face as she winked at him with a grin on her face. It's you. Why do you have time to come and see me? Di Shirtian saw her and nodded slightly. The person who came was none other than Lin Dai, who sold him the vermilion bird elixir technique. After she got the monkey wine, she left at will and joined the Qin family and became a disciple of the Qin family. It was said that she was about to become an official disciple. After knowing that Di Shirtian also lived in the valley, she would come over to talk whenever she was free. She was also lively, like a little sister next door. Brother D, you will make Xiao Dai sad if you say that. Can I come to see you for no reason? Lin Dai's face changed and showed a trace of bitterness, as if she was very unhappy. However, it disappeared immediately and she returned to her normal self. She said with a smile, Today, I went out with a few sisters. Do you know that there is an interesting thing happening in the imperial capital now? Brother D, have you heard of totems? Her tone changed, and she suddenly mentioned the matter of totems. When these words fell into Di Shirtian's ears, his originally indifferent mind suddenly became excited. A flash of light quickly flashed in his eyes. He thought to himself, Totems, could it be that Hua Wenwu has already ascended the throne and started to do the things I told him to do? While calculating the time, it should be about time. I have already helped him to clean up the consecration hall. There is almost no obstruction to his ascension to the throne. Totems, this was what he asked Hua Wenwu to do. It was related to the matter of converging faith. He instinctively felt that faith would have extraordinary benefits for him in the future. It was definitely not as simple as ordinary people imagined. Di Shirtian was able to move unhindered in the business world in his previous life. A pair of sharp eyes was crucial. It was precisely because of this that he could see the extraordinariness of the jade slip at a glance. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 190. Faith was mysterious to begin with. It was definitely not as useless as it was in the eyes of ordinary cultivators. Therefore, he decisively made a move and supported Hua Wenwu without hesitation. He just wanted to test what kind of existence faith was and what kind of help it could bring him. Totem? What kind of totem? Of course, Di Shirtian knew what the totem was, but he would not reveal it in front of others. The totem itself was a secret. In the whole of China, the number of people who knew the real inside story of the totem was definitely less than 5. He pretended to be puzzled and shook his head. Lin Dai was obviously a lively person. When she saw that even Di Shirtian did not know, she seemed to have a sense of accomplishment. She chattered, Big Brother D, you don't know. When the new emperor of China ascended the throne, he suddenly announced that he had the bloodline of the sacred beast Black Tiger and was a descendant of the sacred beast. Therefore, all the people of China are the descendants of the sacred beast Black Tiger and respect the Black Tiger as their totem. A large number of craftsmen were also dispatched to the imperial capital to build a statue day and night, preparing to set it up in the center of the imperial capital. I went to see it with my other sisters. The statue is almost finished. That Black Tiger is so majestic. This little girl didn't seem to be scheming at all. In front of Sakura, it was as if she was spilling beans. She rattled out everything that she knew, as if she was presenting a treasure, telling him everything in full detail. It seems that Hua Wenwu did a good job and did not disappoint my expectations. If this is the case, I can give him some benefits appropriately. Di Shirtian listened while muttering to himself in his heart. He also had a good evaluation of Hua Wenwu's actions, especially when he said that he was the descendant of the sacred beast. Not only did it eliminate the resistance of the people to the greatest extent, but it also imperceptibly increased his reputation and made him sit more firmly on the chair. The means of a superior were displayed invisibly. It was very difficult for ordinary people to detect it. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, but he still said perfunctorily, Oh, If that's the case, I'll have to go to the imperial capital to take a look if I have the chance. The totem was already in progress, but the golden body had not been completely molded yet. When it was molded and erected, the statue would be a place to store faith. At that time, as long as the people of China worshipped him, the power of faith they emitted would naturally enter the statue. According to the jade slip, such a statue would become different from an ordinary statue when it gathered the power of faith. The more power of faith it gathered, the more mystical the golden body would become. If the golden body was placed here, it would gather the power of faith for 8 to 10 years. At that time, even if the cultivators saw it, they would have a feeling of being suppressed unconsciously. It truly possessed supreme power. This kind of power was not his own, but was given by all his believers. This was because when they prayed, they would naturally think of the totem in their hearts. The totem was powerful, invincible, and so on. When this kind of thought was superimposed, incredible power would appear. It was like the Buddhist statues in some ancient temples. The Buddhist statues that had been passed down for hundreds or thousands of years would have a kind of power that people did not dare to look at easily. This was the effect of faith. There was another point. At that time, the golden body of the totem was placed in the imperial capital. If China was in crisis, the totem would naturally send out a kind of protective power to protect the imperial capital. It could be said to be incomparably wonderful. All these were what Di Shurtian saw from the jade slip and figured out by himself. But he did not see it with his own eyes. He really intended to go and see it with his own eyes when the statue was erected. Lindai could not stay with Di Shurtian for long. After saying some interesting things, she reluctantly left, leaving Di Shurtian alone to meditate. The next day, when Katomi came again, as expected, she played the heart-cleansing Bodhi song for Di Shurtian. When listening to the song, his mind was once again promoted to the unique state of clarity. At this time, he let his mind come into contact with the sadness. As expected, they slowly began to merge. Or it could be said that his mind was slowly adapting to the existence of the sadness. This kind of adaptation was quite slow. Even with the heart-cleansing Bodhi song, it still could not speed up. It could only merge bit by bit and adapt bit by bit. It was estimated that if he could listen to the song every day and merge with the power emitted by the song, it would take at least about half a year to a year. However, Di Shurtian was not just listening to the song. Intentionally or unintentionally, he silently watched the rhythm and notes played by Katomi. Then, he remembered it in his mind with his powerful memory. Other people's things will always be other people's. Only when you hold it in your own hands can it truly belong to you. He was deliberately learning the heart-cleansing Bodhi song. If he wanted to shape the demon vein, he couldn't just shape the sorrow vein. He had to shape the other desire veins as well. At that time, if there were any hidden dangers, he couldn't just stay in the Guqin Melody Valley and let the Guqin heart play for him. Self-rescue. He had to master the instinct to rescue himself. However, this heart-cleansing Bodhi song was indeed worthy of being one of the immortal songs. The changes in notes and rhythm could be said to be quite complicated. The most important thing was the technique used during playing. It was obviously completely different from playing an ordinary song. Di Shurtian guessed that this technique might be the true essence of the zither song. After all, a divine song needed to be filled with true yuan in the 10 fingers. When playing, the true yuan would enter the strings. Only then could the true yuan unleash its unique power. Just by looking at the notes and rhythm, it was slightly difficult to remember. However, to truly learn the essence of the song, one had to know the unique technique of the song. Di Shurtian knew very well that he had no reason to ask Katomi to teach him. The only way was to observe carefully and hope that he could deduce it after a long day. After listening to the song, Qin Xin continued to teach other songs and continue to train the playing skills and so on. Every day was very regular. Learning the zither and cultivating, neither of them missed the other. In the blink of an eye, time flew. 3 months later, in the imperial capital, Di Shurtian's totem was completed. He also received Hua Wenwu's notice and went to take a look personally. The totem was unusually tall and mighty. It had pitch-black hair and a purple king pattern on its forehead. Its head was raised high proudly and looked at the void. Its body exuded a domineering aura that shot up to the sky. The totem was obviously carved by a master. Even its aura was vivid and lifelike. It seemed to be looking down on the common people. Under the natural power of the totem, many people were immediately convinced after it was erected in the center of the imperial capital. When Di Tian was in the imperial capital, he clearly perceived that there were wisps of mysterious power emerging from these people. Some were heterogeneous, some were pure, and all of them went into the totem. The totem was like a bottomless pit. No matter how much power of faith went in, it was not satisfied at all. It could be said that it swallowed as much as it came. Because Di Tian himself was the object of the people's faith, he could feel the existence of the power of faith. He could also clearly see wisps of milky white gas entering the totem. He could also feel the mysterious power in it, but he could not use it. He guessed that he probably needed to break the restriction in the jade slip to know its true use. He was not too anxious about this. The totem had just been established, and there were not many believers. However, he believed that under the imperceptible influence of time, in the future, the totem would be deeply rooted in the hearts of all the people in China. At that time, it would naturally be a matter of course. In the regular Guqin Sound Valley, he lived an almost secluded life. Unknowingly, a whole year quietly slipped away from him. Phew, a year was not long, and there were almost no changes in the Guqin Sound Valley. The purple bamboo forest was still full of vitality, and the originally newly built bamboo buildings had a trace of wind and frost. A gentle breeze gently blew, bringing a trace of coolness. Now it was the autumn season. Many plants began to wither. In the bamboo building, Di Tian let out a long breath of turbid air, opened his eyes, stood up, came to the window, and looked outside. His eyes were still deep and incomprehensible. The immortal cultivators have a saying that makes sense. Time really flies. Think about it. In the blink of an eye, I have been away from the southern barbarian for a year and a half. I wonder how the myriad demon valley is now. And what about Little White? Di Tian's words contained an inexplicable color. Although he was in the human world, he always remembered his identity, and his roots were always in the southern barbarian. It's almost time to go back. A thought emerged in his mind. In the past year, with the help of Katomi's music, the sorrow pulse in his body had been preliminarily integrated with his mind in just half a year. He had tried it. Now, even if he took out the Luchi zither, the influence of the sorrow pulse on his body would not erode his mind. It could be said that his mind had begun to adapt to the mood of the sorrow pulse. Since then, he had never slacked off in his cultivation. The demonic spirit in the demon refining cauldron had risen to 2/3 of its original level. Compared with a year ago, his strength had more than doubled. Di Tian was confident that even if he faced Wan Tao again, he could compete with him. At least, he would not be as embarrassed as before. He had basically learned all the skills he wanted to learn, and he had mastered most of the songs. There was not much point in staying in the valley. Naturally, he had the intention to leave. He looked up at the slowly rising sun in the east. Strands of golden light sprinkled on the earth, making it look vigorous. Purple chi came from the east. All of them showed exuberant vitality. The rising sun is full of vitality. But where is the vitality of the demon clan? Di Tian's pupils contracted, and a firm look burst out. He could not help but clench his fists, and his body was overflowing with an unyielding belief and endless fighting spirit. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen, please go to www.chidian.com. More chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 191. During this year, in the Zither Melody Valley, other than Qin, the only person he came into contact with was Lin Dai, that little girl. Between him and Qin, Di Tian naturally wouldn't be unable to detect the increasingly strong feelings in her eyes. However, he could only pretend that he didn't know anything. Usually, He would only learn the zither in the early morning and return to his room after he finished learning, not daring to stay with her for long. Every few days, Lindai would come over and talk to him. From her, he learned a lot about the world of immortal cultivators, as well as some recent developments. Therefore, although he rarely went out of the valley, he knew that in the world of immortal cultivators, many forces were preparing for the opening of the heavenly demon secret realm, which was getting closer and closer. According to her, it seemed that even the Qin family had begun to prepare to enter the secret realm. Big Brother D, it's time to start learning the Guqin. Just as he was daydreaming, Katomi's familiar voice came into the room, as usual. Di Shitian's body shook as he glanced at the things in the room. The furnishings in the room were very ordinary, and there was not much difference. Every place was neat and tidy. Although it was simple and crude, it could be said to be warm. It's time to leave. If it's time to cut it off, then so be it. The myriad demon valley is my route. Sakura took a deep breath and took out a storage pouch. With a quick wave of his hand, all the daily utensils in the house were sucked into this empty storage pouch. After a few breaths, all the items were put into the pouch. Out! With a thought, Di Shitian took out another empty storage bag. He had a lot of storage bags like this on him and was not scarce at all. He could take out hundreds of them at will. With this soft shout, the purple king mark on his forehead constantly shot out rays of purple light. At the same time, above the purple pool in the king mark, a green Guqin emitted bursts of green light. Above the Guqin, a purple passage appeared out of thin air. A strong suction force swallowed the Guqin in one fell swoop. Ding dong! The zither followed the purple light and rushed out of the royal rune in the blink of an eye. It was the Lu Qichin. She seemed to be very excited after coming out. Her strings vibrated, and a boundless aura of life suddenly erupted. However, Di Shitian's movements were extremely quick. Just as it was about to erupt, he quickly waved the storage bag in his hand and sucked the zither into it. The aura that was about to erupt suddenly disappeared. However, even so, the aura that Lu Qichin exuded at that moment still made many people in the Guqin Valley stand up at the same time. They all looked in the direction of Di Shitian. Katomi, who was standing in the pavilion in front of the bamboo house, had the deepest feeling. The aura that came from that instant caused her body to violently tremble. She looked at the bamboo house with an incomparably astonished expression. Why is this aura coming from Big Brother D's room? I heard the sound of a Guqin. Could this aura be coming from some Guqin? But why do I feel that this aura is very familiar? It gives me an inexplicable sense of familiarity. What's going on? Katomi's eyes were filled with surprise and confusion. She was secretly bewildered. Regardless of whether she confirmed it or not, what was the source of the aura inside? However, that familiarity made her feel as if she should know. It was as if it was something intimate that she had lost. Creak! Just as she was feeling puzzled, the crisp sound of a door being pushed open rang out. Di Shitian, who was covered in a black robe, walked out of the house. When he saw Katomi, he lifted his feet and walked over. For some reason, when Katomi saw Di Shitian for the first time, she had an inexplicable feeling that something big was going to happen. Her emotions could not help but become even more chaotic. Big Brother D, you are... Katomi was, after all, a meticulous person. A wisp of affection in her heart was secretly tied to Di Shitian. She could clearly feel the change in his aura. With a sweep of her eyes, she found that in his hands, he did not carry the Guqin that he usually held in his hands every time he practiced the Guqin. This made the trace of uneasiness in her heart become even more intense. Di Shitian looked at the girl in front of him, who had been with him for more than a year. The expression in his eyes was a little complicated. He walked to Katomi with an indifferent expression. After a moment of silence, he opened his mouth and said, "I'm leaving." Leaving? Where are you going? This sentence was like a bolt of lightning that struck heavily on her heart. Her face, which was covered by the veil, instantly became pale. The Guqin in her hands that she was holding fell onto the table with a thud. Her expression became a little panicked. She was actually a little distracted by Di Shitian's words. The Guqin Valley is not a place where I should stay for long. I only came to the valley to learn the Guqin. Now that I have mastered it, there is no reason for me to continue staying here. Tion shifted his gaze away. He could not bear to look at Katomi's suddenly sorrowful expression. He hardened his heart and said, "Besides, I still have a group of subordinates waiting for me back at home. No matter how long I stay outside, I will still have to go back. Katomi, thank you for teaching me the Guqin with all your heart over the past year. You even played the heart-cleansing Bodhi song for me alone every day. Before I leave, I have nothing to repay you with." Tion took out the storage bag and said, "There is something in here that belongs to you. Take it as a parting gift." After he finished speaking, he extended the storage bag in his hand in front of Katomi. Big Brother D. Katomi looked at Tion's face that she had seen countless times. Her heart ached faintly. That confession back then did not make the feelings in her heart disappear. Instead, as time passed, they became even more profound. Perhaps even she herself did not realize it. Now that she heard that Tion was leaving, she could not help but feel an impulse. She couldn't help but feel an urge to make him stay. However, at the same time, she was reminded of her family's responsibilities. She wanted to make him stay, but when the words reached her mouth, they became hollow. She said bitterly, "Can you stay?" Her eyes revealed a look of anticipation. After saying that, a bitter smile appeared on her face. Katomi knew that she had no reason to make him stay. Say that she liked him? Did she still have the right to choose love? All good things must come to an end. Today's parting means that we will meet again in the future. I have been in the Guqin Valley for more than a year. I can no longer delay. Don't worry, I will always remember you in my heart. Tion forced himself to harden his heart and said indifferently. How could he not understand Katomi's thoughts? It was just that he had no reason to accept it. There was a gap between the monster clan and the human clan. Of course, race might not be a problem, but Tion knew very well that although he had a good impression of Katomi, it did not rise to the level of love. What's more, he could not abandon his subordinates and Little White who were waiting for his return in the southern barbarian for a woman. "You really can't stay?" Katomi asked again. "We will meet again next time," Tion said in a deep voice. The meaning in his words was very clear. "Well, I will accept your gift." Katomi took a deep breath. The sadness in her eyes was still, but she reached into her arms and took out a snow-white storage bag. When she took the storage bag from Tion, she also put it in Tion's hand and said, "Since you want to leave, here is some of my understanding of the Zither. I hope it can be of help to you." Katomi was, after all, a child of an aristocratic family. When she saw that Tion had already made up his mind to leave and that it was impossible to change it, she knew that there would be no result even if she stopped him. There was no reason to force him to stay, so she gradually collected her feelings and gave a storage bag that seemed to have been prepared long ago to Tion. Gently holding it, she felt the warmth of its owner in the storage bag. After thinking about it, she did not refuse and nodded, "We will definitely have a chance to meet again in the future." Tion left very decisively. After saying goodbye, he turned around and quickly left the Zither Valley through the entrance of the valley. Katomi stared at his departing figure in a daze. She held the ordinary storage bag tightly in her hands. Unknowingly, her eyes had already become watery. Drops of crystal-clear tears rolled down her cheeks. "Haha." As expected, Tion is still in the Zither Valley. It's been a year. It's been more than a year. You definitely did not expect that I would actually wait here bitterly for more than a year. If I don't properly settle this debt with you, I will never be able to get rid of the resentment in my heart. When Tion left, he did not notice at all that not far from the entrance of the valley, a pitch-black figure was hiding in a hidden corner. Two cold eyes stared at him coldly, revealing traces of dense hatred. The anger in them was like the raging waves of the sea. It was difficult to calm down. I thought about it for a few months. I don't believe that a mere foundation establishment cultivator, like you, could have so many puppets. Even the elite disciples of the puppet sect wouldn't be able to have this kind of treatment. It's fake, it must be fake. This time, I will definitely get rid of the resentment in my heart. This person was none other than Wan Tao, who had fought a battle with Di Shirtian. In the end, he was defeated by the large number of fighting spirits released by Di Shirtian. At that time, when he returned, the more he thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. He felt that there was more than a few thousand puppets, and they were all Foundation establishment cultivators. Which wastrel would have such a large amount of money? Because the fighting spirits were too real, his heart wavered, and he could not be sure. After thinking for a long time, he finally felt that it was an illusion and that it was fake. When he thought about it, his anger soared to the sky. This resentment was naturally directed at Di Shirtian. He had not left the valley and waited outside for more than a year. Until today, when he saw Di Shirtian walk out of the valley, the resentment that had been brewing for a year could be said to have completely rushed to his head. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 192. Wan Tao's cold eyes were like a venomous snake hidden in the darkness. Even though he kept telling himself that those puppets were fake, he had no intention of fighting Di Shirtian right in front of the Heart Music Valley. After all, Di Shirtian's strength was so strong that he could even hold his own against a core formation cultivator for a period of time without being defeated. It could be said that he had the strength to challenge someone of higher realm. Even though Wan Tao's cultivation level was above Wan Tao's, he didn't plan on casually making a move. At the very least, he wanted to stay a certain distance away from the Heart Music Valley to avoid alerting the Qin family if they fought. Wan Tao's heart was filled with dread towards the Qin family. He was willing to endure for a while longer. After Di Shirtian left the Heart Music Valley, he glanced at the storage pouch in his hand that still had a faint fragrance. He scanned it with his demon awareness and couldn't help but reveal a trace of shock. How am I supposed to face you in the future? Secretly smiling bitterly, he shook his head and took a deep breath. His heart was racing. Inside the storage pouch, there was a brand new book. On the cover of the book was a line of delicate words. Heart-cleansing Bodhi song. Katomi actually copied the heart-cleansing Bodhi song from the Qin family. Looking at the handwriting, it was obvious that it was written not long ago. This kind of ancient book was definitely not allowed to be leaked in the noble families. However, Katomi actually copied it for him without knowing the rules. This kind of action was undoubtedly harming the Qin family's interests. She said that she wouldn't teach him, but she gave him such a precious ancient book before he left. The affection contained within made Di Shirtian's heart feel bitter. He smiled bitterly to himself. He really didn't know how to repay this kindness in the future. Laughing bitterly, he collected his thoughts and didn't think too much about it. He carefully placed the bag of holding on his body and quickly flew off into the distance. After moving 3 to 4 miles away, Sakura's figure suddenly stopped in the midst of his rapid movement. His body shook, and with a clang, clang, clang sound, numerous pitch-black crescent-shaped blades quickly condensed and formed outside his body. This process was rather quick, to the point that it was almost formed in the blink of an eye. After it was formed, 20 demonic mist blades burst forth with a bitter cold light, following a mysterious trajectory between heaven and earth, and slashed towards a huge ancient tree behind him like lightning. Boom, boom, boom! The demonic mist blade was as thin as a cicada's wing and abnormally sharp. Its strength was comparable to a flying sword. Although the ancient trees had grown for many years, how could they withstand their attacks? A good ancient tree was instantly sliced into pieces, tilting and falling. However, the target of the demonic mist blades wasn't the ancient tree at all. After passing through the tree, their speed didn't decrease in the slightest as they blasted towards the back of the tree. A series of explosions rang out one after another. Terrifying waves of chi tore the broken ancient tree into pieces. Without the obstruction of the ancient tree, a figure appeared clearly in front of him. "It's you." When Di Shirtian saw that figure, his pupils suddenly shrank, and his voice was incomparably cold. There was a faint trace of vigilance in his voice. "Umph. Back then, you used a bunch of bullshit puppets to trick this seat into leaving. In order to wash away that humiliation, I waited outside the Zither Melody Valley for more than a year. Time pays off for those who wait. Today, you finally come out. This time, I'll settle the score with you. Junior Marshall brother, Shwe, Eni died at your hands. In addition to what happened last time, this day next year will be the anniversary of your death." The person in front of him was none other than Wan Tao, who had been following behind him. Wan Tao's words were filled with resentment, but he wasn't as anxious as he appeared on the surface. Instead, he was secretly paying more attention to this matter. Back then, outside the imperial capital, Di Shirtian had relied on a kind of unseen vigilance to detect him. This time, he was even more direct. He made the first move, instantly forcing Wan Tao to reveal himself. He didn't expect that in just 1 year, Sakura, this brat, had actually improved to such an extent. With such speed, he was simply a genius in the immortal cultivation world. He absolutely couldn't be left alive. Otherwise, in a few years, he would definitely become a scourge. Feeling that Di Shirtian's aura was far more powerful than before, the killing intent in Wan Tao's eyes was almost completely revealed. In this world, the strong preyed on the weak, and this was even more so for cultivators. Generally, if cultivators were to become enemies, the best way to deal with them was to kill them as quickly as possible. This was because if they couldn't kill them in one go, they would hide in the mountains and forests for dozens or hundreds of years. Once they came out, they might become a powerhouse. At that time, the one who would die was not someone else, but themselves. Di Shirtian's speed of improvement made Wan Tao feel a deep sense of fear. He didn't even think and didn't want to say anything. He took out a long blood-color banner and waved it quickly. Blood clouds immediately surged out violently and rushed into the air. They completely covered the area within a 1-mile radius. Vaguely, this area seemed to be isolated from the rest of the world. Unexpectedly, he first set up a restriction around this area to prevent escape. Then, a pair of blood-colored hooks flew out of his hands. The hooks trembled violently, and the blood-colored light on them was like flowing water, flashing quickly. In the blink of an eye, they turned into 2 blood-colored centipedes, 1 male and 1 female. They were at least 1 zhang long, and their bodies emitted waves of ferocious hostility. Their aura was not inferior to that of a demonic beast. In the world of cultivators, there was a method to increase the power of magic treasures. That was to extract the demonic soul from the bodies of the demonic beasts that were killed and then fuse it with a magic treasure. In this way, the magic treasure spirituality would increase greatly, and its power would become extremely strong. It could also summon the demonic soul that was fused with the magic treasure. The demonic soul's consciousness would be wiped out, leaving only the instinct for fighting. It was a very powerful method. When summoned and used together with the magic treasure, it could display several times the usual combat power. This kind of magic treasure was called a psychic magic treasure. It had more potential than ordinary magic treasures. However, when the demonic soul fused with the magic treasure, the success rate was not high. Every time the fusion failed, not only would the demonic soul be directly destroyed, but the magic treasure's power would also drop by a level. Even if 100 fusion attempts were made, there might not be a single success. The matter of the psychic magic treasure could be said to be the biggest secret in Wan Tao's heart. Apart from himself, no one else knew about it, and he had never revealed it in front of anyone. This time, for Sakura, he actually took out this assassin that could be said to be his trump card without hesitation. It could be seen how strong his killing intent towards Sakura was. Hiss! Hiss! The 2 blood-colored centipedes, which only had their instincts left, were condensed. At the same time, they let out a terrifying roar to the sky. The roar carried a strong smell of blood. Each of the centipedes had hundreds of segments, and the edge of the carapace was as sharp as a blade. Countless legs danced wildly in the air, staring at Di Shirtian, revealing a ruthless killing intent. With a roar, they fiercely pounced on Di Shirtian. "Oomph! Wan Tao, you deserve to die. When Di Shirtian saw the two large centipedes, his eyes revealed a cold, killing intent. With his eyesight, how could he not see that these two large centipedes were definitely demonic beasts when they were alive? Unexpectedly, they were killed. From the looks of it, whether it was their demonic cores, corpses, or even their demonic souls were not spared. Seeing the demonic beasts being treated like this, an instinctive anger surged. His body shook, and another 20 demonic mist blades instantly condensed. Without a trace of stopping, they all chopped down on the two blood-colored centipedes. The sharpness of the demonic mist blades had always been Di Shirtian's killing move. However, when they landed on the blood-colored centipedes, bursts of blood-colored light flowed like flowing water, and the sharp saber chi on the blades were all deflected. The segments of the carapace moved, and the blades were crushed. His murderous aura towards Di Shirtian did not decrease in the slightest. Di Shirtian's expression was calm and incomparably cold. With a thought, the seven sins demonic zither, which had been constantly absorbing the power of desire between heaven and earth in the demonic residence, turned into a demonic jade light and appeared in his left arm. His right hand fell on the strings, and his 5 fingers pulled out after images, quickly plucking the strings. He did not have the elegance of a zither master, but exuded a domineering aura. Plucking the strings was like waving a saber. Ding-dong, ding-dong. The strings were plucked one by one. If one looked closely, one would see that although the current plucking of the strings was as domineering as before, the demonic chi in Di Shirtian's body poured into the strings through his 5 fingers. There was a faint trace of skill. The power of the 7 sins demonic zither was actually drawn out by this domineering skill. In the past, Di Shirtian was just a rude zither and could not draw out the power of the 7 sins demonic zither itself. It was good enough that he could exert 50% of its power. Now, with the help of skill, the true power of the 7 sins demonic zither began to be exerted. Not to mention the close combat between Di Shirtian and Wan Tao. The battle became white-hot from the beginning. However, Katomi had been standing in the valley, watching Di Shirtian's figure gradually disappear from her sight. A drop of sparkling tear fell to the ground like a pearl and shattered into countless pieces. Sigh. A sigh sounded in Katomi's ears. Madame Chin had come to the pavilion unknowingly. Looking at the sorrowful aura on Katomi's body, she sighed, "Silly child. Although Di Shirtian is good and can be said to be one of the best among the younger generation, he is not a disciple of the Chin family after all. He is too mysterious. Your father investigated for a full year and still could not find anything about him. You are destined to be sad for the rest of your life if you fall in love with him. Listen to your mother and forget about him." Katomi retracted her gaze and looked at Madame Chin. She revealed a poignant smile and said, "Mother, you don't need to persuade me. As a member of the Chin family, Katomi understands her responsibilities. Perhaps this is just a beautiful memory in my daughter's heart. Sigh, it's been hard on you." Madame Chin sighed and said, "You should see what kind of gift your big brother D left for you before he left. Perhaps he never cared about you at all. A parting gift could also, to a certain extent, show the importance of one person to another. Please give me a few recommendation tickets. I hope that no matter where you read it, please come back to Chidian and give me a few recommendation tickets after you read it." Chapter 193. Katomi smiled faintly and lowered her head to look at the storage bag in her hand. The storage bag was the most ordinary kind. The space inside was not big, about the size of a small house. It could not hold too many things. It was an ordinary storage tool that almost anyone with some ability in the cultivation world would have. It could not be considered precious at all. However, in her eyes, it was as if she was holding the most precious treasure in the world. Her eyes revealed a gentle light. "No matter what it is, this is the first and last time he gave me something. Whether it is precious or not is not important," Katomi said softly. In this bag, even if it was the most inconspicuous weed, it was the most precious thing in her eyes. Because, in her heart, It represented the feelings that she could not say. She gently opened the storage bag. Whoosh! A bright green light surged out of the bag like a tide. This ordinary storage bag was pushed by a strong force on the spot, and the space in the bag instantly collapsed and shattered. The green light covered the sky and spread out in all directions. All the flowers and trees that were covered by the green light started to grow crazily at the same time. Ding dong! Ding dong! In the green light, a green guqin vibrated with incomparable excitement. The strings did not need to be plucked at all and began to jump, making crisp sounds. It was incomparably cheerful. Waves of simple aura were emitted from the guqin. The vast aura almost instantly enveloped the entire Guqin Valley. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In a short span of a few breaths after Luchin's appearance, one figure after another continuously rushed out from the valley. Some were using light, some were directly flying in the air, and some were even directly appearing out of thin air. In the blink of an eye, in this originally unremarkable pavilion in the purple bamboo forest, there were actually more than 10 figures that had inconceivably appeared. Among them, Qin Xian was among them. Seeing a few of them, even Madame Qin's expression changed slightly, and a slightly respectful look appeared on her face. Lu Qin, haha, it's the Lu Qin. Our Qin family's treasure, the Lu Qin, has finally been born. The teachings left behind by the old ancestor were not wrong. The green jade, zither, really came into being in this generation. Who is it? Who is it that has the ability to bring it out from the zither realm? This is the ancestor's personal treasure. In the end, our Qin family is blessed with great fortune. Our countless efforts for the sake of the world have not been in vain. The heavens will not watch as our Qin family is exterminated. Good. Our Qin family finally has hope of surviving this crisis. Most of the people who suddenly appeared were old men. They looked at the mysterious green light of the ancient zither and the mysterious green leaves on the ancient zither. They were like children, dancing with their hands and feet. Their faces were full of excitement. They looked at the ancient zither as if they were looking at an attractive beauty. Qin Xian looked up at the sky and smiled. The heavens did not disappoint my Qin family. Lu Qin, oh Lu Qin. Ha! He laughed heartily. Lu Qin. This is the legendary Lu Qin. Katomi stared blankly at the ancient zither in front of her, her eyes filled with disbelief. Everyone in the Qin family knew what the Lu Qin meant. It was the Qin family's most precious treasure. Legend has it that it was refined from a branch of the world tree. It had supreme power. Even Qin Xian had been guessing what kind of item Sakura would leave in the storage bag, but no one would have guessed that what was left inside was actually a treasure that no one would have thought of. While she was in disbelief, a kind of ecstasy involuntarily emerged in her heart. She thought to herself, the verdant zither was given to me by Big Brother D. Doesn't that mean that Big Brother D found it in the zither domain back then? Whoever finds the verdant zither will be my husband. Waves of joy appeared in her mind, and her heart surged like waves. The one who found LV Qin was Sakura, which meant that everything that she had scruples about in the past, the obstacles that she had erected between the two of them, would no longer exist. She could no longer love someone without any misgivings. Xin, who took out the Lu Qin? Could be D. Shirtion? Qin Xian's face was filled with joy. However, when he thought of the origin of the Lu Qin, he found it strange. Back then, when it was in the spiritual altar, the altar couldn't detect that someone had brought it out. This was the most unbelievable thing. Father, Big Brother D, gave it to me before he left. Katomi nodded happily. Looking at the Lu Qin, it was exceptionally bright. She felt an incomparably intimate aura from the Lu Qin. She couldn't help but reach out and hug it. No, the Lu Qin is a treasure, but without its approval, no one can touch it. Otherwise, they will suffer a backlash. Seeing Qin Xian's action, Qin Xian's expression abruptly changed. He shouted loudly and hurriedly tried to pull her away. However, halfway through, his hand stopped with a strange expression on his face. Katomi held the Lu Qin with one hand. The The moment the Lu Chi Chin landed in her hand, all the green light was withdrawn into the Lu Chi Chin. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared completely. She blinked and affectionately stroked the Lu Chi Chin. Xian, how did you touch the Lu Chi Chin? Qin Xian looked at her in surprise. I don't know. I just felt a very intimate aura from the Lu Chi Chin Xian, so I carried it over. It doesn't seem to be dangerous. On the contrary, it has a very comfortable aura. Katomi shook her head. She only did it out of instinct. She didn't know the danger at all. Good. Xiao Xuanzi, you have a good daughter. She can actually get the approval of the Lu Chi Chin. Her future achievements are limitless. TSK, little girl, come to the Heavenly Sound Cave in a few days. We old fellows will personally guide you in your cultivation. An old man dressed casually smiled as he looked at Qin Xian. His eyes were full of fondness. Xiao Xuanzi? Qin Xian's mouth couldn't help but twitch a few times. Thank you, second grandpa. Katomi was overjoyed when she heard this. She quickly thanked him. However, she immediately said to Qin Xian, Father, the Lu Chi Chin was brought out by Big Brother D. According to the oath I made, Big Brother D is my husband. I'll go and find Big Brother D. Although she was very happy to find a Lu Chi Chin, what she was most happy about was that from now on, she could be together with Di Shirtian. She no longer had to worry about the obstruction of her family. That's right. When Qin Xian heard this, his expression became somewhat solemn. He said, however, Di Shirtian is not simple. He actually has the means to hide the Lu Chi Chin. He is really too mysterious. If I don't investigate his identity, I will never be at ease. Bang! At this moment, a series of intense roars erupted in the distance outside the valley. The sound was so loud that even the valley could hear it clearly. The old men casually glanced at it, but they didn't seem to be interested at all. One by one, they strangely left like when they came, leaving only Qin Xian's family in the same place. I don't care. I made an oath a long time ago. Whoever can find the Lu Chi Chin will be my husband. It doesn't matter if he is a human or a ghost. Katomi, will never marry anyone except him in this life. I'm going to find him. Katomi heard the roars in the distance. She could vaguely see blood-red clouds in the sky. There was a faint feeling in his heart that this might be because Sakura was encountering some danger. Qing, she called out to something in the air. Roar. As soon as her voice fell, a crisp and pleasant cry that seemed to carry the aura of a king quickly rang out. In the distance, a green figure quickly arrived in the air above the pavilion. Upon closer inspection, it was actually a large green bird in the air. This bird appeared to be abnormally noble. There were 3 green feathers behind its tail. It was an ancient sacred beast, the green swan. Legend has it that the green swan had long been extinct in the purple gold continent. It was destroyed in the ancient times. She didn't expect to see one here. However, it seemed that this green swan hadn't reached the level of a sacred beast. It was still a young sacred beast. However, the green swan was the green swan. Even though it was young, it still had the noble aura of a king among birds. When Katomi saw the green swan, her eyes revealed a friendly expression. She leaped into the air and landed on the green swan's back. She patted its head and said, Chinger, hurry up. Let's go to the place where the sound came from. The green swan seemed to be able to understand human language. It immediately flew up and let out a loud cry. With a light flap of its wings, it quickly rushed towards the place covered by the blood-red clouds. Waves of pressure emitted from its body. With this movement, it could be seen that although it was only a young green swan, it already had a powerful aura that wasn't inferior to a core formation cultivator. Its speed was extremely fast, leaving behind afterimages in the air. Too reckless. When Qin Xian saw this, he shook his head. His body flashed, and he also rushed out of the valley. With this movement, it could be seen that the Qin clan head was actually flying in the air. He was directly using his physical body to fly. This kind of cultivation was definitely not something a core formation cultivator could do. At this time, the battle between Di, Shirtian, and Wan Tao could be said to have reached its climax. After learning the zither, Di-Shirtian had already figured out how to use the true power of the life artifact, the 7 sins demonic zither. His 5 fingers quickly plucked the strings of the zither. Layers of demonic white light appeared on the body of the zither. The power of desire that had been absorbed surged onto the zither. In addition, Di-Shirtian's own demonic chi was added to the zither. Beams of jade-colored sound blades flashed with strange light. Compared to before, these sound blades were like heaven and earth. They contained the power of sound waves, which made the sound blades vibrate unceasingly. Wherever they passed, sonic booms resounded in the air. The power of desire was also contained in the sound blades. When the sound blades vibrated unceasingly, the power of desire they emitted could directly arouse the desire in people's minds. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 194. Each of these sound blades possessed the terrifying, offensive power of a core formation cultivator. 1 or 2 of them would be easy to deal with, but now, under Di-Shirtian's control, it wasn't a matter of 1 or 2 sound blades, but dozens, hundreds, and even thousands of sound blades. They filled the sky like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers, immediately engulfing the male and female centipedes in this storm of sound blades. The 2 blood-red centipedes were powerful beasts when they were alive. They were extremely powerful. However, among the beasts, those who could awaken their natural talents were called the Beast Kings. Those who couldn't were just normal beasts. The blood-red centipedes didn't seem to be beast kings like Di-Shirtian. Even though their souls were fused with the blood hooks, the stronger the blood hooks, the more powerful the centipedes would be. However, they were still at the level of beasts. Faced with the sound blades that seemed to be endless, the centipedes were extremely violent. They charged around violently, but only managed to destroy a few hundred sound blades. Then, their bodies were crushed by the sound blades. Hum. The 2 blood-red centipedes were destroyed. In midair, a pair of blood hooks reappeared. However, the blood hooks were now extremely dim. They let out cries of pain. It was obvious that they were heavily injured. Back in the day, when Di-Shirtian faced Wan Tao, he was always on the edge of life and death. Today, he easily destroyed Wan Tao's killer move. From this, it was obvious that in the past year, Di-Shirtian had improved tremendously. As a beast, with the help of the 7 sins demonic zither, he could fight against a completion-level cultivator. As expected, you've become stronger. However, today, I will end your good luck. Wan Tao's expression became very unsightly. With regards to Sakura easily breaking his own psychic magic treasure, he was even more fearful. Traces of malevolence appeared on his face, and his eyes shot out a dense killing intent. He quickly waved his hand towards the blood hook in the air and said coldly, "Originally, I didn't want to take out this magic treasure so early. However, with your cultivation, you have the qualifications to pay tribute to my newly obtained demonic palace this time. If it wasn't for you, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to obtain this treasure." The blood hook returned his hand in the blink of an eye. Looking at Sakura's current strength, he knew that his original methods would not be able to do anything to him. He hardened his heart and flipped his right hand. A strange, pitch-black palace appeared on his palm. Black chi spread out from the palace and covered its surface, causing it to appear extremely mysterious to outsiders. It was faintly discernible, and there was a faint demonic chi swallowing and spitting out of the palace. In the devil chi, one devil after another was making strange noises. This strange cry contained a terrifying power that shook one's soul. This was the sound of a devil. Sky Demon Palace appears. All heavens shall be executed. Suppress. Wan Tao held the Devil Palace in his hand. In his ferocious expression, he didn't realize that a wisp of devil chi was seeping out of the Devil Palace and entering his body through his arm. As he roared, the Sky Demon Palace was thrown into the air. At the same time, the palm-sized sky demon palace started to swell violently. In the blink of an eye, it became incomparably huge. As it grew larger, the appearance of the devil palace became clearer. On the outside, it was a palace. However, this palace was engraved with countless images of devil gods. A terrifying devil chi was brewing within the palace. Numerous devil heads were shuttling back and forth in the devil chi, tumbling about. It was extremely terrifying. Waves of devil chi filled the surroundings. The palace was incomparably huge, and in an instant, it appeared above Di Shirtian's head. What kind of Dharma treasure is this? Almost at the first moment, Sakura wanted to move his body and escape the coverage of the demon palace. However, when the demon palace shrouded the top of his head, it was as if there was a strange power pouring out from the palace, confining the space below. With his cultivation level, which was about to form his second demon vein, he couldn't escape from this confinement even if he used all his strength. No, this devil palace is too strange. I can't let this continue. I have to break the confinement and escape. Otherwise, I'm afraid there will be great horror. Di-Shirtian's heart was beating wildly. His sharp spiritual sense told him that there was an indescribably terrifying power in this devil palace. Ding dong, ding dong. His 5 fingers moved quickly, forming an afterimage above the zither strings. Sound blades shot out in all directions like fountains. He wanted to use the invincible attack of the sound blades, as well as the terrifying vibrations that they possessed, to break the confinement around him. Haha, it's useless. No living creature can escape from the Sky Demon Palace. Get in. Wan Tao revealed a trace of ridicule towards Sakura's action of continuously releasing sound blades. His face became incomparably complacent, and a hand seal was cast into the palace. This hand seal was quite formidable, and after casting it again, his complexion actually became incomparably pale all of a sudden. Moreover, the hand seal seemed to contain boundless magical power. When it hit the palace, the Sky Demon Palace shook violently. The demonic aura around the palace suddenly surged, and the demonic sound became louder. A strong suction force suddenly came from the palace and was applied to Di Shirtian in an instant. The demonic aura swirled and shattered the sound blades around him. He didn't even have the chance to resist. In the blink of an eye, Di Shirtian was forcefully swallowed by the Sky Demon Palace. Ow! A bird's cry filled with the aura of a king rang out. A ball of green flames descended from the sky and landed on the blood clouds in the air. The green flames were abnormally strong and constantly refined the blood clouds. Large patches of the blood clouds were burned clean. It was as if this ball of green flames could restrain the blood clouds. It was incomparably domineering. The blood clouds dispersed, and a huge green lawn appeared in the air. A girl in white was standing on top of the green lawn. The girl held a green guqin in her arms. The guqin emitted green light from time to time. There were verdant leaves on the body of the guqin. They were so lifelike that even the patterns on the leaves could be seen clearly. Brother D, after dispersing the blood clouds, the girl happened to see Di Shirtian being swallowed by the Sky Demon Palace. Her expression changed greatly, and she cried out in alarm. With a flip of her jade-like hand, a jade talisman appeared in her hand. The jade talisman flickered with jade light, and in the blink of an eye, it was quickly destroyed after she injected a strong wave of vital essence into it. Boom, boom, boom. When the jade talisman was destroyed, a pitch-black cloud formed in the sky above the Sky Demon Palace. Within the black cloud, streaks of lightning flashed quickly, and there was a faint sense of vast pressure. Then, bolts of vast heavenly lightning continuously bombarded from the thunderclouds. Each bolt was as thick as a bucket. When they fell, countless streaks of lightning filled the sky. 5 blow thunderstruck. In the immortal cultivation world, according to power, spells could be divided into low grade, beginner, middle grade, and high grade. Any higher than that was beyond the immortal cultivation world. The 5 blow thunderstruck was one of the most powerful types of middle grade spells. It was especially effective against foreign species and demons. Such a spell was so powerful that even nascent soul cultivators had to be careful when dealing with it. 5 consecutive strikes landed heavily on the heavenly demon palace, one after another. It was unknown what kind of magic treasure the Sky Demon Palace was, but as if it felt a strong threat, waves of pitch-black demonic chi spewed out from the palace. It formed a demonic cloud above the palace, blocking the heavenly lightning. Every bolt of lightning struck the demonic cloud, causing it to roll violently several times and become thinner. When the 4th bolt of lightning struck, the demonic cloud was also destroyed with a loud bang. The last bolt landed solidly on the palace. Buzz! The Sky Demon Palace withstood the bombardment of the heavenly lightning. Although the demonic chi on the surface became abnormally thin, its body did not suffer the slightest damage. Demonic chi, such pure demonic chi. Damn it, could it be the legendary Sky Demon Palace? Wasn't this demonic artifact lost long ago? How could it appear now? Katomi's expression changed dramatically. When she saw the appearance of the Sky Demon Palace, her face hidden under the veil became abnormally ugly. Obviously, she had some understanding of the palace in front of her. But at this moment, a strange change occurred without warning. The Heavenly Devil Palace was enduring the bombardment of heavenly lightning. The heavenly lightning seemed to have activated the hidden power of the palace. A towering wave of devil chi gushed out from the palace. It was very strange. This devil chi didn't rush towards the sky, but rather towards Wan Tao, who was on the ground below. Wan Tao's expression changed. Wan Tao did not expect such a thing to happen. For a moment, he could only watch as the demonic chi completely covered him. A shrill scream pierced the sky. In the pitch-black demonic chi, one could faintly see a figure writhing in pain. The demonic chi did not hesitate to violently rush into the body inside. Naturally, it was accompanied by a series of miserable howls. In the midst of this, the Sky Demon Palace appeared above Wan Tao, faintly emitting a monstrous demonic aura to protect him below. Streaks of demons shuttled back and forth in the demonic chi, rushing into Wan Tao's body. That scene was extremely strange and frightening. It sent chills down one's spine. The Sky Demon Palace. It's actually the legendary ancient demonic treasure, the Sky Demon Palace. Why did it appear at this time? Oh no, that cultivator is going to turn into a demon. If he is corroded by the Sky Demon Palace and becomes a demon, I'm afraid there will be another demon on this mainland who kills without batting an eyelid. At some point, Qin Xian appeared beside Katomi. He stood in midair and looked at the scene below, his eyes full of shock. Father, what should we do now? Big Brother D has been swallowed by the Sky Demon Palace. We have to quickly think of a way to save Big Brother D. In the Sky Demon Palace, who knows, Big Brother D might be demonized by the demonic chi inside and become a demon. That would be terrible. When Katomi saw Qin Xian, she immediately begged, as if she was drowning and grasping at straws. The Sky Demon Palace is an ancient demonic treasure. Legend has it that it is the most precious treasure of the Great Freedom Sky Demon. Now, it looks like it has been greatly damaged and its power has been greatly reduced. However, the Great Freedom Sky Demon is best at attracting inner demons. Once the inner demons are triggered, even a great divine ability expert will fall and become a demon. It is easier said than done to save D. Shirtion. Qin Xian clearly understood this ancient demonic treasure better. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 195. Furthermore, although legend has it that the Sky Demon Palace was damaged during the Ancient War, it is almost impossible for us to break into the palace from the outside with our strength. There's only one way for those who are sucked in to come out, and that is to fight their way out of the palace. Unless Qin Xian was extremely fearful of the Sky Demon Palace. He watched helplessly as the palace turned Wan Tao into a demon, But he did not do anything because he knew that it was already too late. After all, it was not easy to break out of the palace's confinement. Unless what? Katomi hurriedly asked. She stared at the Sky Demon Palace, her eyes full of anxiety and worry. Qin Xian looked deeply at her and said, "Unless you can completely refine our Qin family's green jade zither and unleash its power, it is impossible for the outside world to completely break into the Sky Demon Palace." After he finished speaking, he glanced at the zither in her hands and shook his head bitterly. Although the green jade zither did not reject Katomi and was even closer to her for some reason, without refining it, it was impossible to unleash its true power. Otherwise, there really was a chance. Then Big Brother D. "No, I have to go in and find him." Katomi panicked. Without thinking, she rushed towards the Sky Demon Palace. This was a completely subconscious action. "What are you doing?" Qin Xian's expression changed, and he hurriedly reached out to pull her back. He scolded her and said, "Do you think you can save Di Shurtian if you enter the palace? You are just going to die in vain." In the ancient times, even those powerful cultivators did not dare to rashly step into its sharp edge. Now that the Sky Demon Palace's power has been greatly reduced, it is not something you can touch. Even if a nascent soul cultivator enters, they will not be able to return. Qin Xian's expression was unusually solemn. His eyes stared unblinkingly at Wan Tao, who was surrounded by demonic qi, as if he was waiting for something. At this moment, Wan Tao's screams had gradually disappeared. Waves of demonic qi continuously surged into his body. The originally dense demonic qi was rapidly being absorbed by Wan Tao. He was afraid that when the devil qi completely disappeared, he would become a devil. Speaking of which, Wan Tao's arrival at the Sky Demon Palace could be said to be an unusual coincidence, and it was closely related to Di Shurtian. Back then, when Di Shurtian suddenly summoned thousands of war spirits, he was so scared that he immediately fled. While fleeing, he suddenly ran into a strange cave due to his panic. Inside the cave was a small palace. He didn't know why, but when he saw the palace, there was a voice in his heart telling him to pick it up. As long as he picked up the palace, he would be able to obtain unparalleled power, strength that could dominate the world, endless beauties, and so on. Unable to resist this call, Wan Tao picked up the palace. Naturally, that palace was the Sky Demon Palace in front of him. Wan Tao was naturally cautious, and as soon as he got hold of the Sky Demon Palace, he came to his senses and realized that it might be a rare treasure. However, considering how mysterious it was, he didn't dare to refine it too deeply. He didn't dare to use it carelessly. Now, facing Di Shurtian, this was the first time he took it out. Firstly, he was vaguely impressed by the terrifying battle strength that Di Shurtian had displayed. Secondly, he wanted to see the power of the Sky Demon Palace. He didn't expect that the Sky Demon Palace would have such amazing demonic power. However, after using it, he still couldn't escape the fate of becoming a devil. As time passed, the figure in the demonic qi became clearer and clearer. Wan Tao's figure was completely different from before. His body was forcibly stretched to more than 2 meters tall. His body was incomparably burly, and the muscles on his arms were intertwined, constantly surging and exuding a strong sense of power. Traces of demonic qi diffused from his body. A sinister, pitch-black demonic tattoo inexplicably appeared on the left side of his face. His black hair danced wildly behind his head. Roar! Wan Tao opened a pair of eyes that were emitting black, demonic flames. He opened his mouth in front of him and sucked fiercely. In an instant, all the demonic qi in the surroundings surged into his mouth like a tide. In the blink of an eye, he swallowed it all into his stomach. He even burped from his mouth. He turned to look at Qin Xian and smiled sinisterly. He stretched out his right hand, holding the huge Sky Demon Palace. The demonic qi around him rolled up his body, and he fled into the distance. "Devil, where are you going?" When Qin Xian saw this, his body flashed, and a purple drum appeared in front of him. He held 2 drum hammers in his hands and hammered down on the drum. Boom! The purple drum exploded with a terrifying sound that was like a thunderous roar. The purple sound waves swept out, and the earth shook. Cracks spread out on the ground like a spider web. Countless trees in the surroundings were shaken to death. Katomi was by Qin Xian's side, so the sound waves didn't hurt her. However, Wan Tao, who was hiding in the demonic qi at the front, seemed to have been struck by lightning. He vomited a mouthful of pitch-black demonic blood. However, his speed did not decrease. Instead, it increased. He carried the heavenly demon palace and swept up the demonic qi. Demonic flames surged into the distance. I couldn't stop you when you became a devil, but I can slay a devil. Not only does my Qin clan have the heart-cleansing immortal tunes, but we also have the devil-slaying command, which is used to slay devils. However, you've just become a devil, and you've already reached the devil-nascent soul realm. If I let you control the heavenly devil palace, I'm afraid the world will suffer. If I don't get rid of you today, it will be even more difficult in the future. Qin Xian's expression was serious. Xiao Qian's figure flashed, and he quickly flew in the direction Wan Tao had gone. Qing chase after him. Katomi hurriedly urged the blue Wan under her to chase after him. The blue Wan was a sacred beast. Although it was young, its speed was already extraordinary. It chased after him without falling behind at all. She looked extremely anxious. Thinking of Di Shirtian being sucked into the palace, she was even more worried and uneasy. She kept praying in her heart that Di Shirtian would be fine. On the other hand, Di Shirtian was also extremely shocked when he was sucked into the Sky Demon Palace. A palace could have such terrifying power. Obviously, this palace was definitely not an ordinary magic treasure. However, the more dangerous it was, the calmer Di Shirtian's mind became. His expression didn't reveal anything. He held the seven sins demonic zither tightly in his hands. Now, this zither was the only thing he could rely on. He stroked the zither for a while, and his heart calmed down slightly. He also had the mind to look around. He couldn't help but be shocked. He saw that he was in a huge palace. The space in the main hall was quite spacious. Above the main hall, a throne full of supreme majesty appeared in front of him. This throne seemed to be full of supreme temptation, causing a desire for all kinds of power to emerge in one's heart. A voice seemed to be ringing in his heart. Come, sit on this throne. As long as you sit on it, you will have monstrous power in the world. You will control the fate of the world. You will be the only king between heaven and earth. Beautiful women, money, treasures, as long as you want, you can have it all. Come, sit on it. You'll have everything. Come. A voice full of temptation echoed in his heart, in his ears, and in the main hall. Under this voice, Di Shirtian suddenly felt that the desire in his heart was about to burst out like a flood. Ha! Come, king. As long as you sit on it, you will be our king. We will all be yours. In the originally empty main hall, beautiful women appeared out of thin air. They only had a thin layer of gauze on their bodies. This gauze was so thin that it was pitiful. It could only cover some of the private parts of their bodies. Their bodies were constantly twisting, dancing around Di Shirtian in a seductive dance. As they danced, the private parts of their bodies became faintly discernible, full of curves, full of endless temptation. Their bodies emitted an irresistible charm. It made people willing to indulge in this gentle fragrance. Even Di Shirtian was attracted in an instant, the desire in his heart rushing to his head. The Sky Demon's erotic dance. Even if a monk with a heart as calm as water saw it, he would turn into a hungry ghost. 10,000 years of cultivation turned to nothing. Ding dong. The seven sins demonic zither was Di Shirtian's natal demonic artifact. At this moment, it seemed to have faintly sensed its master's danger, and it trembled on its own. A pitch-black light surged from the zither, violently rising, and instantly covered his entire body. The desire that emerged from Di Shirtian's body was continuously swallowed by the demonic zither. What kind of dance is this? It's so terrifying. Even when I was vigilant, it could still arouse the desire in my heart. As soon as the desire in Di Shirtian's body was sucked away, his mind immediately became clear, but his forehead was dripping with cold sweat. Thinking of the scene just now, he couldn't help but feel scared. If it wasn't for the 7 sins demonic zither, he was afraid that this time he would have fallen into it. The consequences could be imagined. How can a pink skeleton bewitch me? Di Shirtian looked at the witches who were constantly dancing mysterious seductive dances around him and shouted. After experiencing it once, his state of mind naturally improved a lot. With the protection of the 7 sins, how could he be bewitched again? With this shout, the witches around him disappeared silently, just like when they appeared. However, after they disappeared, rays of treasure light suddenly spread out in the hall. In the treasure light, one could see all kinds of treasures flashing in front of his eyes like flowing water. The cataclysmic seal, the Taiji diagram, the bell of chaos, the 4 immortal slaying swords, the supreme treasures in Di Shirtian's consciousness kept appearing one after another. Each of them was incomparably real, radiating thousands of rays of treasure light, making people unable to help but want to take them. Take one of them, and you would be invincible in the world. Don't you want to save your mother and brother? Don't you want to change the tragic situation of the demon race? Take them, and you will have invincible power in the world. Take them. Every single one of the treasures before him contained a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering might. Yet, all of them appeared before him, allowing him to choose freely. There seemed to be a strange charm within the light of the treasures, causing him to unconsciously want to pick them up. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 196. Beauty moves people's hearts, and treasures are even more difficult to give up. Di Shirtian's throat squirmed a bit, and he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Even if his mind was tough, he had been warning himself in his heart that the treasures in front of him were all illusory. He couldn't help but have the urge to reach out and pick them up. In the myths of the previous life, all kinds of powerful treasures almost all appeared in front of him. According to the description of the myths, any one of them had the terrible power to destroy the world. Picking them up, not to mention anything else, at least in this immortal cultivation world, he would definitely have the strength to dominate. What Thousand Beast sect, Blood Cloud sect, if the sky-flipping seal smashed down, they would definitely turn into ashes. When the chaos bell rang, even the tall and sturdy mountain would be shocked into powder and smashed into nothingness. Once the immortal slaying sword formation is out in the world, who can compete with it? Fake. All of them are fake. I want the treasures, but I am no longer the weak, ordinary person of my previous life. I have been reborn as a demon, and I already have power. Sooner or later, I will set foot on the peak. The treasures are man-made, and the 7 sins in the hands of Di Shirtian is the treasure. It will set foot on the peak with me, a treasure that looks down on the heavens. Di Shirtian closed his eyes, and the demon spirit in his body quickly flowed in the meridians, gushing out from his left hand into the ancient zither, and then flowed through the body of the zither and returned to his body through his right hand. In an instant, a cool and mysterious power was brought out from the zither and integrated into the demon spirit, and a trace of the demon spirit was left in the ancient zither. After this cool air entered the demon spirit also had a trace of coldness, flowing in the meridians, as if drinking a bowl of ice-cold pear in summer. It was cold from head to toe. The originally tumbling desire immediately dissipated. Suddenly opening his eyes, a trace of threatening light burst out from his eyes, and a sentence was spat out forcefully. Ding dong! When the sound of the 7 sins demonic zither fell, it also seemed to be unusually happy because of Di Shirtian's attention. The strings trembled slightly, and a feeling of joy was passed from the ancient zither to Di Shirtian's mind. The spirituality of the ancient zither had reached such a level. Because of the master's regard for him, he felt a trace of emotion. Since it's an illusion, then let me destroy it. Sakura felt the emotion emitted from Chin's body. That trace of emotion made him surprised, but at the same time, he was secretly happy. He stretched out his hand and stroked the zither. Instantly, the 9 zither strings vibrated, and numerous sound blades shot towards the precious treasures like a flurry of blades. In the blink of an eye, all of them were sliced into countless pieces. TSK, TSK. Just when these illusory supreme treasures were all destroyed, those tempting scenes no longer appeared in the palace. The scene changed. Dense devil chi gushed out in all directions, forming strange devils with malevolent faces. They were like ghosts, completely illusory. However, their entire bodies were filled with devil chi. Their eyes were filled with killing intent, and their mouths opened and closed, emitting strange sounds that filled the entire palace. These were all devils, and each of them possessed powerful devil chi. However, they seemed to be illusory existences just like ghosts. The only difference was that they were even more terrifying than ghosts, and the devil chi they possessed was even more capable of corrupting magical treasures. When they pounced into a person's body, they could devour the nascent divinity. When devil chi took over a person's body, if they were not careful, they could plant devil chi in the person's body. When it grew stronger, it could even turn the person into a devil. It was extremely difficult to exterminate a demon. Even if they were shattered and scattered, they could still reform in the blink of an eye. Unless one had a technique or magical treasure that could deal with devil cultivators, it was best to stay as far away from them as possible. Now, there were no less than 100 devils that appeared in the main hall. Their speed was extremely fast, and as they shuttled back and forth, they left countless afterimages behind them. They made strange noises, opened their devil mouths, and pounced toward Sakura. There was no place to dodge in all directions, and this pounce carried a kind of aura that wanted to completely annihilate him. The Sky Demon Palace finally showed its ferocious face as it could not tempt D. Shirtion with its inner demons. In fact, the Sky Demon Palace was not as powerful as it was now. It did not even display 1/10,000th of its original power. It was not that the user could not use it, but that the Sky Demon Palace itself had been severely damaged, and its power had been greatly reduced. Otherwise, it was the Mahesvara Sky Demon's personal demonic treasure, and its strongest power was to attract inner demons. When it was at its peak, once it attracted inner demons, even a great medium would be extremely wary. Otherwise, with D. Shirtian's current state, even if 10,000 of him entered, he would not be able to maintain his calm. Using a devil to kill an enemy was secondary. Now, even the devil's power was greatly reduced. Ding, ding, ding. D. Shirtian's expression was solemn. His hands quickly plucked the strings of the guqin, and sound blades continuously flew out from the strings. In the blink of an eye, there were hundreds of them. These sound blades were like a storm. With him as the center, they madly slashed in all directions without any concealment. Rays of sharp light flashed in all directions. Although the 7 Sins demonic zither was his natal demonic artifact, to use it to release sound blades. Every time he released a sound blade, it would consume his own demonic aura. This was because every string on the guqin was incomparably tough. Only by pouring demonic aura into the fingers could one pluck the strings. Otherwise, an ordinary person would not even be able to pluck the strings. Every time he plucked the strings, he would consume demonic aura. Now that he had released hundreds of sound blades, the demonic aura in his body had almost instantly consumed 30% of his demonic aura. However, the attacks that consumed so much demonic aura were definitely not wasted. The attacks were very sharp. As they swept across, they landed on the devils. Rays of sharp light flashed, and they were all cut into several pieces by the sound blades. Then, the sound blades did not stop there, and heavily slashed the surrounding palaces. Rumble! The devils were cut into pieces, but when the sound blades landed on the palaces, they only caused the palaces to tremble violently a few times. Then a pure demonic aura burst out. Like sword silk, the strands of demonic aura immediately shattered the sound blades that had almost exhausted their power. In the blink of an eye, the originally shattered devils gathered together one after another. They reformed into devils one after another. However, the demonic aura on these devils had become much fainter. It had become much thinner. It was obvious that the sound blades that had cut open their bodies did not cause them any damage. What are these? Even my sound blades can't kill them. When Sakura saw that the originally shattered devil head had actually recovered to its original state in the blink of an eye, his heart was in turmoil. Such a mysterious thing. Ever since he was born, he had never seen it before. Strange. It was really too strange. It was so strange that it made one's scalp numb and hair stand on end. After all, Tian had only cultivated for a short period of time, and he had never come into contact with such strange things as devils. How would he know about the strangeness and terror of devils? TSK, TSK. These devils were unwilling to give up. As soon as they reformed, they pounced on Tian again. Ding dong. Tian's expression was grave. Without even thinking, he plucked the zither strings again, sending out sound blades. The sound blades, once again, chopped the incoming devils into pieces. But then, that strange thing happened again. The devils reformed again. Although the demonic aura outside their bodies had become much thinner, they were still ferocious and terrifying. Each strand of demonic aura was not the slightest bit inferior to that of a Foundation establishment cultivator. This place is really strange. The palace that Wan Tao took out looks very strange. It's definitely not a righteous Tao treasure. I must find a way to break out of here. Otherwise, these strange things can't be killed. If I continue to send out sound blades, it will only consume my own cultivation. If I run out of demonic aura, it would be dangerous. Tian's heart sank. He could see that the devils around him were practically indestructible. If he continued to fight, even if the devils did not die, he would be completely exhausted. These strange things are illusory, similar to ghosts. I don't know if my King Mark can deal with them. When he saw that the devils did not have a real physical body, but rather an existence similar to a soul, he couldn't help but think of his own innate ability. The purple King Mark had a miraculous effect on things like ghosts. Any soul, as long as the King Mark was used, would be invincible. In a situation where the sound blades could not kill them, perhaps the King Mark would have a miraculous effect. With that thought, Tian immediately made up his mind. When he saw the devils pouncing on him again, his expression became abnormally cold. Purple King Mark, subdue ghosts and gods. With a thought, the purple King Mark on his forehead suddenly began to pulse rapidly. Strands of purple light constantly burst out from the King Mark. As the King Mark pulsed, it was as if a purple flame was burning on his forehead. It looked abnormally mysterious. The demonic aura that he had been restraining all this time could no longer be restrained when he used the King Mark. Demonic aura billowed out from his body like smoke signals. It was incomparably black. His entire body was enveloped in it. Waves of supreme majesty gushed out and pressed down on the entire palace. Under the contrast of his imposing manner, at this moment, Tian's body seemed to have suddenly become incomparably tall. Swish! Strands of purple light shot out like lightning when the King Rune's pulse reached its peak. In the blink of an eye, the purple light filled the entire palace. This purple light seemed to contain a mysterious and unfathomable power. It had no effect on the other things, but when it landed on the hundreds of fiends, the layers of fiend aura in their bodies started to sizzle like snowflakes in summer encountering the scorching sun, and quickly dissipated with a strange, sizzling sound. The demonic chi seemed to have met its nemesis. The mysterious aura in the hall was completely destroyed. Then, the purple light condensed together, condensing into purple threads that landed on the demons' bodies. Like silk, they directly tied up into purple cocoons and were about to be pulled into the King's Rune. However, it seems that the devil is not content. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chijian.com to read more chapters. Support the author. support the original reading. Chapter 197. TSK, TSK. Within the purple light cocoon, a series of strange cries rang out. Their 10 fingers became slender, revealing pitch-black devil claws that tore at the light cocoon, wanting to tear it apart. The stronger ones even extended their devil claws from the cocoon, causing the light cocoon to tremble continuously. For a moment, the King Rune was unable to absorb these devils. Rumble. At this moment, the King Rune seemed to have suffered a great provocation. The purple pool in the King Rune trembled violently without warning. Undercurrents surged and collided with each other, creating waves of purple waves. At this moment, the purple pool was completely roaring. Moreover, the thousands of war souls that had been staying in the pool opened their eyes at the same time. Their eyes emitted a bright purple light. Their long hair danced wildly behind them. Their auras were incomparably violet. Roar! A series of roars came out from the war souls' mouths, causing the purple pool to churn crazily. Swish! Deshirtian felt the majestic power from the King Rune. He snorted coldly, and the purple light on the King Rune became even more dazzling and intense. Thousands of rays of light burst out and wrapped around the devils, tightly binding them. No matter how strong the devils were inside, they could not completely break out. At the same time, a powerful force pulled all the devils into the King Rune. As they got closer to the King Rune, the figures of the devils slowly shrank. In almost the blink of an eye, all the devils in the hall were swallowed into the King Rune. As soon as these devils entered, they appeared above the purple pool. Whoosh! A purple wave surged, sweeping all the devils into the purple wave and swept them to the bottom of the pool. Boom, boom, boom. The war souls moved and came to the top of the devils. Their feet stepped on the devils, suppressing them in the purple pool. They were as motionless as mountains, and the devils could not move at all. However, the devil chi that was emitted from their bodies was devoured by the purple pool, and this devil chi was mysteriously transformed into the power of the purple pool. One could see that the devil chi on the devils was being stripped away bit by bit. No matter what kind of palace this is, it can't bind me, Deshirtian. If you want to bind me, I'll break you. If the heavens want to trap me, then I will poke a hole in the heavens. As soon as Deshirtian sucked in the demon head, his aura reached its peak. The 7 sins demonic zither in his hand instantly returned to the demon palace. His long black hair danced wildly behind his head. Every word he uttered contained a great aura, like the might of the heavens. His eyes flashed, and boundless demon chi surged out, hitting the sky above the palace, causing the sky demon palace to tremble violently a few times. Demon flames were surging. A domineering aura gushed out from the bottom of his heart. Roar! In the demonic aura, Deshirtian's body changed. In the blink of an eye, he turned from a human into a huge black tiger. His muscular body was filled with the might of a tiger king, and the king pattern on his forehead exuded a majestic aura. After revealing his true form, the tiger's body immediately began to swell violently. Boom, boom, boom. The tiger's body continued to grow. In the blink of an eye, it had grown to a huge body of 130 to 140 feet. Standing in the main hall, it was almost as big as a small mountain. As his body grew bigger, the aura on his body also increased exponentially. For the demon clan, only the true form was the most powerful state. Only the true form could unleash the terrifying power of the demon body. Deshirtian's eyes shot out a domineering gaze. He raised his right tiger claw, and a stream of pure demon chi quickly poured into it from the demon palace through the demon meridian. The tiger claw expanded again, becoming incomparably huge. It slammed heavily into the sky demon palace. Bang! Even if Sakura's original demon body didn't revolve as demon chi, it still had a terrifying power. Even if it was a hard rock, it would be smashed into pieces with just one claw. Now that the demon chi was continuously pouring in, The hidden power in the tiger claw had reached a terrifying level. It slammed into the sky demon palace. A terrifying explosion sounded on the spot. The entire palace shook violently in an instant, as if it was about to fall apart. At this moment, Wan Tao, who was desperately running away with a cloud of demon chi wrapped around his body and holding the sky demon palace in his hand, suddenly trembled violently. A mouthful of pitch-black demon blood spurted out of his mouth. His body seemed to have been struck by lightning. His originally fleeing figure suddenly stopped in midair and looked at the sky demon palace in horror. Looking at the sky demon palace from the outside, the entire palace was shaking violently. It seemed as if it would be destroyed at any moment. Countless demon chi was constantly tumbling from the shaking. A large number of demons let out mournful cries. It was as if the palace had absorbed an incomparably terrifying existence. "Father, look," the demon stopped. "Look at the sky demon palace. Isn't that big, Brother D?" The demons were fleeing in front, while Qin Xian and Katomi were chasing closely behind. When they saw the demons suddenly stop, they couldn't help but stop nearby as well. After taking a closer look, how could they not see the sky demon palace shaking violently? Katomi couldn't help but be overjoyed. The sky demon palace had absorbed Di Shurtian before. Now, there was a change in the sky demon palace. Without a doubt, Di Shurtian was definitely breaking the seal. What exactly is Di Shurtian? Even after being absorbed into the sky demon palace, he still has the ability to resist. At this moment, Qin Xian was thinking about something else. He deeply felt that Di Shurtian was mysterious and extraordinary. Xiner, don't hold too much hope. Although the Sky Demon Palace can be broken from the inside, given the power of the Sky Demon Palace, it's definitely not something that an ordinary person can break. Boom, boom, boom. However, loud rumbling noises continuously came from the Heavenly Demon Palace. The palace shook violently. However, it was as Qin Xian had said. It was as if the palace was unbreakable. No matter how violent the tremors were, it was still intact. It was really strange. However, at this moment, Di Shurtian, who was inside the palace, sharply discovered that the top of the Sky Demon Palace seemed to have a small crack under the continuous bombardment. The crack wasn't obvious, and it didn't appear everywhere. It only existed in a few small places, as if it had been broken before. You want to trap me with a mere palace? Break, break, break! When Sakura saw the crack, his mind was greatly shaken. Instantly, he became incomparably excited. The aura that emerged from his body became even more vast. He raised his tiger claw and continuously bombarded the place with the crack. Every attack contained the strength of his entire body. He attacked the same place 9 times in a row. Bang! Crack! Finally, the crack became bigger and bigger. When the last attack was launched, the entire Sky Demon Palace let out a terrifying boom. A hole that was at least 1 to 2 meters wide was blasted open. When he saw the hole, Di Shurtian didn't even think. His body suddenly shrunk, and his 2 hind legs stomped on the ground. His monstrous body instantly passed through the hole. When he came out, his eyes suddenly opened up. Looking down, there was a tall mountain peak. Di Shurtian didn't hesitate to land on the peak of the mountain. Roar! His aura surged, and all kinds of emotions emerged from his chest. A tyrannical tiger's roar came out of his mouth without any concealment. The tiger's roar was filled with the supreme aura of a king. All around, within a radius of 100 miles, all the birds and beasts felt fear in their hearts. Their bodies trembled as they lay on the ground. They looked in the direction of the mountain peak, revealing a gaze that seemed like they were worshipping a king. The demon was unusually cunning. When he saw that the Sky Demon Palace didn't make any moves, he grabbed it, shrunk in an instant, and swallowed it. Then he spat out a mouthful of blood. The pitch-black demon blood spread out and turned into a cloud of blood mist. His entire body suddenly disappeared in the blood mist. He actually used a large amount of vitality to escape with a blood escape. Big Brother D? Katomi looked at the black tiger standing on the mountain peak in shock. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. Di Shurtian's appearance in the form of a black tiger shocked everyone on the spot. Even Qin Xian was so shocked that his mouth was wide open. Di Shurtian raised his head and glanced at Qin Xian, who was standing in midair, and Katomi, who was sitting on the green lawn. His body shook, and a pitch-black demon wind blew from the ground. It wrapped around him and directly escaped into the distance. During this process, neither Qin Xian nor Katomi stopped him. Qin Xian thoughtfully watched Di Shurtian leave, but Katomi's eyes still hadn't recovered from the shock just now. When she turned around and looked at the mountain peak again, Di Shurtian had already disappeared without a trace. Her eyes couldn't help but reveal an anxious and disappointed expression. "Big Brother Di, why did you leave?" "I don't mind," Katomi muttered to herself. Qin Xian shook his head slightly and said, "I didn't expect Di Shurtian's identity to be from the demon clan. Looking at his appearance, he can transform into a human form. I'm afraid he's already a demon that has condensed an inner core. No wonder I couldn't find out his specific identity, no matter how hard I tried. It seems that there's another demon king among the demon clan." When he spoke of the demon clan, it was very strange. His expression and even his tone didn't seem to show any discrimination or hatred. It was especially different from other cultivators' expressions that changed drastically when they heard about demons. "Silly child, Di Shurtian is from the demon clan, and you are from the human clan. The two of you can't be together in the future. Although our Qin family doesn't discriminate against the demon clan or have any hatred towards them, our Qin family can't be together with the demon clan. However, the Qin family can't let a demon clan son-in-law. Moreover, the demon clan's current situation is even more difficult. They might go extinct at any time. If Di Shurtian is a demon king, he will definitely bear the brunt of a conflict with other cultivators. It's better to forget about him." Qin Xian sighed and looked at Katomi as he consoled her. Katomi always looked very elegant and indifferent, but there seemed to be a strange stubbornness in her bones. She shook her head stubbornly, bit her lower lip, and looked in the direction that Di Shurtian had fled. She said, "No, since I made a vow, I will definitely not go back on my words. No matter if Big Brother Di is a human or a demon, in this life, I will marry no one but him." Although it was a vow, was it really just a simple vow? To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 198. She bit down hard on her lower lip. Her lips were pale because she bit down too hard. Her face under the veil had an unusual firmness. Her eyes were filled with an unshakable determination. "Father, our Qin family has never interfered with the matters of the cultivation world. The rules left behind by our ancestors allow us to treat all races on the purple gold mainland as equals. So what if they are demons? In the ancient times, the records of the demon race recorded in our ancestral records said that they were at their peak of glory. At that time, when our human race was just born, we relied on the demon race to continue. But now, they even want to nibble away at the last bit of strength of the demon race," Katomi said stubbornly. "Humans are not nobler than any other race, and demons are not born lowly. The cultivation world is constantly oppressing the demon race like this. Sooner or later, they will taste the consequences. Be careful with your words." Qin Xian's expression changed, and he said solemnly, "Enough, Ancestor. These matters are not something that our Qin family can change. No matter what, the demon race has already reached the end of the road. This is an undeniable fact. Some old fellows can't wait to wipe out the entire demon race from this mainland. If it weren't for the fact that they still have some misgivings about those great demons in the demon race, they would have already made their move. However, looking at the situation, the day they make their move won't be too far away." As he spoke, he didn't seem to want to say anything more. He shook his head and tossed out the thoughts in his mind, saying, "All right, the demon used the blood escape technique to escape. Looking at the current situation, the chances of catching up to him are slim. However, looking at the demon's appearance, he should have suffered heavy injuries. At least, he won't make any moves for a short period of time. As for the rest, let's return home first. Also, it's best not to tell anyone about Di Shirtian. Qin Xian looked at Katomi's stubborn expression and said helplessly. Katomi looked into the distance and stared in the direction that Di Shirtian left. After a long time, she retracted her gaze and nodded gently. The blue one beneath her turned around and flew back. Sakura, oh Sakura, you're really beyond my expectations. Your true form is actually a rare black tiger. Tigers are the kings of ordinary beasts, and black tigers are a natural variant. Also, the totem that suddenly appeared in China, if I'm not mistaken, it should also be related to you. Totem converges faith. Although the power of faith is mysterious, no one knows how to use it. You want to collect faith? Could it be that there's a way to use it? On the way back, Qin Xian's mind was not as calm and relaxed as it was on the outside. All kinds of thoughts spun in his mind. Not only did he not see through Di Shirtian, but he also had many doubts. It seemed that the fog shrouding him had become even thicker, making it impossible to see through him. Putting aside Qin Xian's guesses, when Di Shirtian left the Sky Demon Palace, because he had revealed his true form and faced Katomi and the others, he knew that his identity had been completely exposed. If he continued to stay, no one knew what kind of attitude Qin Xian and Katomi would have toward his identity. Therefore, without hesitation, he rode the demon wind at the fastest speed and escaped into the distance without stopping for a moment. Even while escaping, Di Shirtian still relied on his instincts and memory to find the direction to the southern wilderness. Along the way, he flashed like lightning. As for what Katomi and the others thought, it was completely out of his consideration. Perhaps, the next time we meet, we will be enemies. An inexplicable thought emerged in his mind. He thought of the strangeness of Wan Tao and the terror of the Sky Demon Palace. For some reason, although he had forcibly fought his way out of the Sky Demon Palace, he still had a vague feeling in his heart. That palace was terrifying, extremely terrifying. There was definitely an earth-shattering power hidden inside. It was almost a fluke to be able to break out of the palace. That was right. Luck. He had such a feeling in his heart. It had to be said that his feeling wasn't wrong. The element of luck was rather high. First of all, the demonic palace itself was a dilapidated item and had suffered huge damage. The devils inside had long been dead or injured, making it so that even Sakura couldn't do anything to those devils. Adding on to the fact that he was from the demon race, his demon body was abnormally strong. When he bombarded the palace, it caused the cracks in the palace to reappear. Only then did he break out of the palace from the original hole. If the Sky Demon Palace was in good condition, he could forget about anything. Within a few breaths of time after he entered, even if he did not sink into his inner demons, he would have been easily torn to pieces by the demons. These thoughts only appeared in his mind for a moment before they were immediately thrown out. His original intention of entering the human world was to learn the art of the Guqin. Now, he had learned the art of the Guqin. If it was the art of the Guqin in the secular world, Di Shirtian was confident that his level was definitely not below that of the so-called Guqin masters. He was already proficient in all kinds of skills. He had even figured out the unique skills of playing the 7 Sins demonic Guqin. He could really exert the power of the Guqin itself and planted a seed in China. He was looking forward to what the seed of faith would evolve into after it grew stronger. He also obtained a lot of information about the situation in the world of immortal cultivators. All kinds of gains showed that the harvest of entering the human world this time could be said to be incomparably rich. At the same time, it took him a full year and a half to get all this. In other words, he had been away from the southern wilderness for a year and a half. Thinking of a cadre in the southern wilderness and Little White in the Myriad Demon Valley, Di Shirtian could not help but have an urgent impulse to return to the southern wilderness. Thinking so in his heart, Di Shirtian acted so. After riding the demon wind for thousands of miles, he stopped the demon wind. His body shook, and he turned back into a human. He landed on the ground. He was wearing a black robe, and his black hair was casually draped behind his head. He looked around with an indifferent expression. He was surrounded by a wilderness with no human habitation. Below him was a small hill, and the hill was covered with withered yellow grass. At a glance, most of the surroundings were like this. He could foresee that if it was spring, when the spring wind blew, this place would definitely be filled with green grass. Looking forward, at the end of his sight, there was a faint ancient city standing up. Tion stopped when he saw this ancient city in the air. The previous fierce battle, coupled with the full strength of riding the demon wind this time. Even with the heaven-grade demon mansion, even with the demon refining cauldron constantly absorbing the spirit of heaven and earth to transform it into demon chi, the power in his body was almost exhausted. If he did not stop to rest and restore the demon chi in his body, he would encounter a little danger on the road. He was afraid that he would die directly before reaching the southern wilderness. Therefore, he planned to go into the city to eat something first, and then find a place to rest for a night to restore the demon chi before continuing on his journey. He lifted his foot and stepped forward step by step. His footsteps landed on the ground with great strength. Each step made a steady sound. Moreover, when he walked forward, the distance of each step was almost a fraction of a second. His hands were placed at the easiest angle to attack. Maybe I should find another weapon for close combat. On the way forward, Tion inexplicably came up with an idea in his mind. This idea had always existed in his heart. The seven sins demonic zither was indeed powerful, but it was most useful in the face of many enemies. Coupled with the seven sins divine melody, it could become a great killing weapon and a trump card that could turn the situation around at a critical moment. In close combat, the demon body of the demon clan was the best body. With a weapon in hand, any demon clan member could become the best warrior. After seeing Wu Wudi's fight, his martial skills could be said to be terrifyingly powerful. If he cultivated his combat skills to a certain level, he would be able to improve his combat effectiveness again. With the seven sins demonic zither as his trump card, he would find a weapon to practice his combat skills. With this in mind, he secretly kept it in mind and would think about it more specifically in the future. While pondering, he had unknowingly walked the distance from the hill to the ancient city. He looked up and saw that the ancient city in front of him clearly had the sedimentation of history and traces of time. The ancient city was called Pei City. The meaning of Pei was rich and abundant. It meant that the original intention of the ancient city was to have a beautiful wish to live a rich life. There were guards in front of the city gate. When entering the city, one had to pay a certain fee. Tion had money, which he had found from the cultivators who had died in his hands. After paying casually, he walked into the city and found that the scene in the city matched the name of the ancient city. It was very lively, and there was always an endless stream of people on the streets. It seemed that it was a market day. The shouting was constantly intertwined. It created a unique atmosphere. He casually found a guest restaurant in the city. Although it was called a restaurant, it actually had a hotel service. He casually ordered some side dishes to fill his stomach and then got a room. He didn't stay long. After entering the room, he began to close his eyes and recover his cultivation. Gradually, the sunlight of the day faded and the night replaced the dawn. In the sky, the waning moon was like a hook. Strands of silver-white light from all directions vaguely entered a room. In the room, Tion was sitting cross-legged on the bed, and there was still a layer of silver-white light around his body. In contrast, it looked very strange. "Master, do you think that the Du family really has such a magical treasure? This disciple has never heard a secret recipe to brew spirit wine." "Idiot, what do you know? Do you know what spirit wine is? It is comparable to the pills refined by alchemists. Moreover, it is an even more precious treasure. Do you know the monkey wine? That is a spirit wine that can raise a chi refinement cultivator's cultivation level by one sip." It didn't matter if it was true or not. Everyone knows to go take a look. If the Du family really does have the wine god's secret recipe, we master and disciple will rise to prominence. He. In the room next door, the sound of an almost undetectable conversation suddenly reached D. Shurkin's ears. His ears quickly twitched a few times. The silver-white light around him instantly surged into his body. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chijian.com and read more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 199. His originally closed eyes quickly opened, and in the corner of his eyes there was a quick flash of light. He spat out a mouthful of turbid air, and his demonic chi naturally poured into his ears. Suddenly, his hearing increased several times in an instant, and the conversation next door that couldn't be any quieter appeared even more clearly in his ears. He had been cultivating for more than 4 hours. With the help of the demon refining cauldron, the demonic chi that he had originally consumed had basically been completely recovered. While he was cultivating, his vigilance did not completely disappear. He always left a trace of his consciousness outside, secretly warning the situation around him. Once there was even the slightest disturbance, he would be able to wake up from his cultivation. Therefore, although he was cultivating, the conversation next door still couldn't escape his ears. When he heard the words spiritual wine and wine god's mystery sutra, Deshurtan immediately turned around from his cultivation without hesitation and listened attentively. Spiritual wine. What is wine god's mystery sutra? Is it a secret recipe to brew spiritual wine? Spiritual wine could be said to be a word that Deshurtan was incomparably familiar with. Under his command, there was a monkey that could brew monkey wine, and he had a deep understanding of the magic of monkey wine. Not only was the power contained in the wine not inferior to that of pills, but it was also easier to absorb. The power in it was even purer. Just the ordinary monkey wine had the same magical effect as the spirit-gathering pill, the best pill for the chi condensation stage in the cultivation world, and even surpassed it. The monkey wine's effect couldn't be ignored for him to be able to reach his current height so quickly. After entering the secular world, Deshurtan had a more specific understanding. He discovered that in the cultivation world, there were 2 things that could increase one's strength. One was the various pills refined by pill masters, and the other was the spiritual wine brewed by wine masters. These 2 were treasures that could directly increase one's cultivation. It was easy to understand that elixirs were refined by alchemists. They could refine extraordinary and miraculous elixirs from ordinary medicinal materials. In the immortal cultivation world, an experienced alchemist would definitely be fawned upon by all forces. They would even generously extend an olive branch to the alchemist. It was also the most deeply rooted in people's hearts. Spirit wine, on the other hand, had a miraculous power that was not the slightest bit inferior to pills. It was also possible to use various spiritual herbs and even various items in the world, such as fruits, flowers, and so on, to brew delicious spiritual wine. Not only was the spiritual wine delicious, but its ability was also completely comparable to that of pills. However, the recipe for spirit wine was often quite rare. Usually, a cultivator would pick some spirit herbs or fruits when he had nothing to do and brew it himself for tasting. This was the formation of the spirit wine, and these wine recipes were naturally their own secrets. No one would take out their own hard work for no reason. Therefore, most of the wine recipes were slowly lost in the river of time. Most of the recipes for spirit wines had been lost. Cultivators could only learn about the miraculous effects of certain spirit wines from ancient records. What's soul-returning wine? Drinking it could bring the soul of a person who had just died back to life. Things like forget love wine. Drinking it could make a person forget a certain relationship and so on. All kinds of miraculous spirit wine could only be found in ancient books. A kind of monkey wine made Deshurtan see the miraculous effects of the spirit wine. Therefore, when he heard the words spirit wine, he immediately turned all his attention to the conversation next door. Half an hour passed as he listened to the story. After a long time, he came back to his senses thoughtfully. He muttered to himself, "The wine god's secret sutra records the recipes for brewing all kinds of spirit wines. Could it be that there really is such a book in this world? If there is, then it might be a great opportunity for me. If I can get my hands on it and master some of the brewing methods of the spirit wine, it'll be innumerable benefits for me and Chihua. It will definitely be able to greatly increase the speed of cultivation." It turned out that the people next door were a master and disciple. The master and disciple's cultivation were not high. They were both small cultivators of the qi refining stage. The master was at the 9th layer of the qi refining stage, and the disciple was at the 3rd layer of the qi refining stage. They belonged to the ranks of rogue cultivators. This pair of master and disciple probably did not expect that there would be a strong cultivator like Di Tian in this inn. All of their conversations fell into his ears. The cause of the matter was that in the vicinity of Pei City, there was a cultivator family called the Du family. Of course, this Du family was the smallest family and was not very influential. Only the head of the family and the second son of the head of the family had spirit roots. The other branches added up to only 3 or 4 cultivators. Their cultivation was not high. There had never been a cultivator who had broken through to the qi refining stage. Speaking of which, all of this was caused by power and jealousy. Although it was a cultivator family, there was no guarantee that every bloodline in the family would have spirit roots. It could only be said that the chances were slightly higher. The head of the Du family, Du Qing, had 2 sons. The older one was called Du Nan, and the younger one was called Du Shan. Du Nan was born without spirit roots and was destined to not be able to walk the path of cultivation. The family rule was that the position of head of the family could only be passed down to the bloodline with spirit roots. As a result, although Du Nan was the eldest son, he did not have the right to inherit the family. On the other hand, his younger brother was doted on by everyone. He became the neglected one and became a dispensable person. Thinking about it, he could not get what should have been his. Jealousy naturally arose. He was jealous that his younger brother could inherit the family. He was jealous that others had spirit roots, but he did not. This kind of jealousy had been brewing in Du Nan's heart ever since he was sensible. Now, after more than 10 years, his mentality had become twisted. He had a crazy idea that if he could not get what he wanted, he would not let others get it either. Then, by chance, he got to know the pair of master and disciple next door and secretly revealed that the Du family had a treasure passed down from their ancestors. It was called the Wine God's Secret Sutra. It could be used to brew spirit wine. The Du family was famous for its wine. The wine they brewed was famous far and wide. Moreover, it was a cultivator family. When they heard this, they believed 70% of it. However, he also learned that for some reason, it seemed that from the beginning, no one in the Du family was able to obtain any wine recipes from the Wine God's Secret Sutra to brew any miraculous spirit wine. Otherwise, the Du family would definitely not be as weak as it was now. Hearing that the master and disciple planned to prepare for a day and go to the Du family to investigate tomorrow night, or force the Du family to take out the Wine Mystic Sutra, they could not help but secretly become interested. If it's true, I'm not in a hurry to return to the southern barbarian lands. I'll secretly follow them tomorrow to see if it's true or not. This unexpected news also made Sakura not in a hurry to return to the southern barbarian lands. He had a little interest in this Wine God's Mystery Sutra. He also felt that even if he interfered this time, there wouldn't be any danger. The master and disciple next door only had the cultivation of qi refinement. They could be pinched to death easily. The Du family did not sound like a big family. With his ability, no one could stop him from going to take a look. He was secretly looking forward to it. His original plan to leave at dawn was temporarily dispelled. He did not go anywhere and only activated the demon refining cauldron in the room to absorb the spiritual energy between heaven and earth. Moreover, with the sorrow meridian, the power of desire in heaven and earth could also be absorbed into the power of sorrow. Similarly, this power of sorrow could only be absorbed. Without a specific cultivation method, it could not be used at all. He could only let it condense in the cauldron and slowly think of a way in the future. The master and disciple were quite patient. They spent most of the day in the room to recuperate and did not go out much. It seemed that they were preparing for the operation at night. During cultivation, time always passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, the sun rose and set, and the waning moon gradually hung in the sky. The night seemed to be a little gloomy. There were dark clouds hovering in the sky, and a trace of drizzle quietly sprinkled down, like the lingering love of a young girl. It was continuous and fluttering. Creak! Tion suddenly opened his eyes, and his ears twitched. He heard the window next door suddenly open, and then two figures passed through the window. The sound of clothes fluttering in the air followed. One after the other, the two figures left the inn. Du family. Tion suddenly got up and opened the window. From the corner of his eyes, he saw two figures skimming into the distance. Looking at the direction they were heading, it seemed that they were going to leave the city. Without any hesitation, he retracted his aura and followed them out of the tavern. He followed the master and disciple duo at a leisurely pace. Considering the level of his cultivation base, he was not someone who could be detected by a pair of cultivators who had not even reached foundation establishment. In terms of speed, there was no problem at all. It was quite easy to follow. As expected, the master and disciple in front really left the city. It seemed that their target was not in the city, but outside the city. Thinking about it, no matter how small the cultivation families were, they were still cultivators. Naturally, they were different from ordinary people. Most of them would not live among ordinary people. They would either find a deep mountain or an old forest, or a place with more spiritual energy. This way, not only would it be helpful for cultivation, it would also be quiet and not be disturbed by others. Silently following behind, they passed through a forest. About 5 to 6 kilometers away from Pei City, there was a quiet valley. In front of the valley, there was a stone tablet with the Du family's symbol engraved on it. Master, we're here. This is the Du family. The disciple who looked to be in his 20s stopped and stood outside the valley. He asked softly, "What should we do next? Should we go in and call the door? Or should we hide and search for the wine god's secret sutra?" "Idiot, of course we'll search first. If we make a big fuss, even if we get the treasure, we won't be able to keep our lives. Let's go." The master was an old man in his 50s or 60s. However, his eyes were always moving, and he seemed to be unusually shrewd. It seemed that after spending most of his life in the cultivation world, he had become as cunning as a fox. After discussing, the master and disciple carefully entered the valley. However, they did not know that behind them, a black shadow was following them from afar. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chijian.com. I support the author. I support the original reading. Chapter 200. So, the Du family is here. If it weren't for the master and disciple leading the way, it would have taken a lot of effort to find this place by myself. Standing outside the valley, he watched the master and disciple sneakily walk into the valley. The valley itself had a small maze formation, which was used to prevent ordinary people from the secular world from accidentally finding this place. Not to mention that the method used was not brilliant. For a truly powerful cultivator, it was simply a formation that could be seen through with a single glance. Even Qi condensation stage cultivators had the ability of the spirit eye technique, which allowed them to see many things that ordinary people could not see, as well as to detect the cultivation level of cultivators. However, if the other party's cultivation level was higher than one level, they would not be able to see any information. Therefore, this small formation could be seen through a glance. The master and disciple did not disturb others at all, and passed through the formation and entered the valley. Seeing all this, Tion was not in a hurry to go in. He had already arrived at his destination. Whether or not he could obtain the treasure depended on whether the Du family had it or not. If they did not have it, it would be useless to rush in. Carefully observing the valley in front of him, This valley was the best place in the vicinity where spiritual chi gathered. The spiritual chi in the valley was particularly rich compared to other places. However, this was only relative to the secular world. It was not like the famous mountains and rivers in the cultivation world, where the spiritual chi was truly abundant. Compared to the myriad demon valley, this valley was just a barren place. It could not be compared to the myriad demon valley. However, the scenery was still quiet. Moreover, even standing outside the valley, there were still bursts of wine fragrance coming from the valley. After smelling it, he could not help but secretly say in his heart, "The Dew family is indeed worthy of being an ancestral winemaker." After a little sizing up, he easily entered the valley. The space in the valley was neither big nor small and could accommodate hundreds of people living inside. There were also various kinds of fruit trees planted in the valley, and a mountain spring was drawn from the mountain. It was a good place to go. In the valley, a villa stood tall, and there were many houses in the villa. Many of the rooms were still lit. The two cultivators in front lightly entered the villa, and as if they did not want to disturb others, they shuttled back and forth between the rooms, constantly searching for something. They wanted to secretly find the wine god's secret sutra and leave without being noticed. This way, they could maintain their concealment, and there would be no danger in the future. However, their luck was not very good. Just as they were investigating a small part of the house, a maid in the villa seemed to be going to the toilet. The moment she came out, she saw two black shadows flash in front of her eyes, and the lantern in her hand fell to the ground with a clatter. "Ah, thieves! Someone's here!" A sharp cry came out of her mouth almost in an instant. The voice was so sharp that it pierced through the sky and broke the originally silent atmosphere in the valley. One by one, the night lanterns lit up. In the blink of an eye, the entire villa was brightly lit. It was as bright as day. However, even though the maid issued a warning, she didn't have a good ending. An earthen yellow flying sword drew out a bright yellow light in the air and lightly coiled around her neck. Her scream came to a stop, and with a plop sound, her delicate and pretty head directly smashed on the ground, blood gushing out from the wound. The speed of the attack was fast, and there was not the slightest bit of tenderness. A sword flew over to behead her. Green blood soared 3 feet into the sky. Oomph. Which friend has the interest to come to my Dew clan's humble home in the middle of the night and even kill someone? Are you not putting my Dew clan in your eyes? A cold snort was heard from the manor, and 3 figures quickly rushed out of the house. Each of them had a small flying sword in their hands. The one in the lead was middle-aged, and his cultivation was not very high, only at the 5th layer of chi refining. He held a flying sword in one hand and a talisman in the other. The two behind him were an old man, 40 or 50 years old, and his body emitted waves of energy, indicating that he was also at the 7th layer of chi refining. The last was a young man with a childish face, and his cultivation was the lowest at the 3rd layer of chi refining. The 3 people who flew out of the house were naturally from the Dew clan. Although the Dew clan was only a small clan, it was still a clan. Their ancestral heritage still had some resources, and at the very least, they did not lack flying swords and talismans. After they came out, they all looked at the master and disciple, and their auras immediately became entangled. Initially, I didn't intend to alarm you. I just wanted to find the item and leave quietly. Since I've already alarmed you, I won't waste any more words. The reason I'm here today is because I heard that there's a treasure in your Dew family. If you don't want the Dew family to be exterminated, I advise you to hand it over. This old man promises that as soon as I get the item, I'll immediately leave. I won't make things difficult for others. The 9th layer chi refining master rolled his eyes and let out a strange laugh, and his body emitted an intense pressure. He appeared to be incomparably domineering. Treasure. Du Qing's expression changed. He put on a brave front and shouted, "Humph! My Dew clan doesn't have any treasure. If we did, why wouldn't we use it? How would this old man know? Don't think that your Dew clan's business is very secretive. If you know what's good for you, hand over the wine god's secret sutra. The old man bluntly pointed out what he already knew, but he didn't make a move. The Du clan's strength couldn't be considered weak. They had cultivators at the 5th and 7th layer of Qi refining, and with the addition of the Du clan's own resources, they definitely had more resources than rogue cultivators. The gap between cultivators at the Qi refining stage wasn't very large. If they really fought, it was hard to predict who would win and who would lose. At that moment, Di Shutian, who was hiding in the dark, saw that when the old cultivator of the Du clan heard about the wine god's secret sutra, he suddenly glanced behind the mountain villa, as if by conditioned reflex. Just this one glance was enough for him to take note of it. His feet moved, and he silently bypassed the area in front of the villa and swept towards the back of the villa. The black robe on his body allowed him to blend in well with the night. In addition, his cultivation far surpassed everyone in the valley. No one noticed that there was such a person in the valley. As the saying goes, the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Regardless of whether it was the master and disciple or the Du clan, with their cultivation, they couldn't detract his attention. No matter how many Qi refining cultivators came, he could kill them all. What he cared about was whether or not the Du clan had the wine god's secret sutra. If they did, he would take it. If they didn't, he would deal with it later. Seeing the expressions of the Du clan, Di Shutian guessed that perhaps there really was such a thing. Just now, that old cultivator suddenly glanced behind the mountain villa. If there really is the wine god's secret sutra, it should be somewhere behind the mountain villa. He secretly thought in his heart, but his speed was not slow. He silently went from the front of the villa to the back, and an ancient ancestral hall appeared in front of him. The ancestral hall was a symbol for a family, and also a place to worship the ancestors. If someone in the family died, the deceased memorial tablet would be placed in the ancestral hall. This kind of place was generally the foundation of the clan's inheritance. It had always been regarded as a very important place. Du clan ancestral hall. Di Shutian raised his head and looked at the plaque above the door. With a thought, his demon sense quickly spread out and covered the entire ancestral hall. There was a Qi refining cultivator guarding the ancestral hall. After sensing it, a tyrannical force burst out from his demon's sense and directly pierced the cultivator's mind. The cultivator let out a muffled groan and fell to the ground. After dealing with the cultivator inside, Lu Ming easily entered the ancestral hall. After entering, he closed the door again and carefully looked around the ancestral hall. There were several hundred plaques in the main hall. Clearly, they were all the ancestors of the Du clan. Above these plaques was a wall with a portrait hanging on it. It could be seen that the portrait was very old. Even the color had begun to turn yellow, but the portrait in the painting was still vivid and lifelike. It was an old man with a head full of white hair in his 40s. He was riding on the back of a white bull. In one hand, he held an ancient jade book. In the other, he held a green jade gourd. He was pouring wine into his mouth. His face was filled with drunkenness. Good painting. After Sakura saw it, for a long time, he couldn't help but secretly exclaim in his heart. This painting was extremely vivid, allowing people to see what the painting wanted to express at a glance. It allowed people to clearly feel that this was the old man riding a bull-drunk immortal painting. Although he didn't know who the old man in the painting was, he always remembered that he didn't come in to look at a painting, but to find the wine god's secret sutra. He quietly shifted his gaze away and scanned the surroundings again. This time, he looked very carefully. With his cultivation, even if it was night, he would still be able to see as clearly as day. Almost nothing in the small ancestral hall could escape his eyes. However, he discovered a very depressing matter after a search. Nothing? Impossible. There's only this ancestral hall behind the villa. If it is hiding something, the ancestral hall should be a good place. Why can't I find it? In the ancestral hall, almost every inch of the ground under his feet was carefully scanned. There was nothing unusual. He even released his demon sense at the same time, but the result was still the same. Except for the plaques, there was nothing else worthy of attention in the ancestral hall. He checked 3 times in a row, but still couldn't find anything different. Logically speaking, if there was something, there was a 90% chance that it was hidden here. Could it be that there is some hidden mechanism or restriction that blocks my demon's sense? After carefully pondering for a while, an idea appeared in his mind. As soon as this idea appeared, his gaze involuntarily fell on the old man riding a bull. Hanging high on the wall, his gaze fell on the old man riding a bull. His eyes gradually became a little different. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. More chapters, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 201. Could it be that there's something wrong with this ancient painting? He suddenly thought of the methods he had seen in many television dramas in his previous life. Those methods of hiding things were nothing more than digging a hole in the ground, burying it, chiseling a secret room, or hiding it behind some kind of object, even hiding it in the interlayer of a painting. These methods were not uncommon. From this, he could feel the wisdom of the ancients. It was indeed profound. It was not something that could be belittled. Thinking of this possibility, the Sakura was born. Perhaps there was something strange about this ancient painting. There was no other reason. It was just that this ancient painting was too eye-catching. The painting skill itself was superb, vivid, and lifelike. Compared to other things, it was particularly different. At first, he automatically ignored it. Now that he looked back, he felt the difference. He stretched out his right hand and grabbed at the ancient painting. Whoosh! An invisible force instantly exerted on the ancient painting, pulling it out of the wall. Grabbing it in his hand, the ancient painting quickly rolled up into the shape of a scroll. Holding it in his hand, he looked at the wall behind the painting. The surface of the wall was the same. There were almost no gaps. However, Tian flicked his finger, and a force flew out and landed on the wall. Dong! A soft, muffled sound rang out. It was not the same as the other places, where the sound of something colliding could be heard. Clearly, this meant that there was indeed something unusual about this wall. The back of the wall is empty. The muffled sound meant that the back of the wall must be hollow. In other words, the wall had been deliberately hollowed out, and there was a hidden layer. He suppressed the joy in his heart and flew up to the wall. He stretched out his hand and made a stroke on the wall. The wall was just ordinary soil and stone. How could it resist him? It was like cutting tofu. In the blink of an eye, a huge stone slab was cut out. When he took the stone slab away, a layer of jade-colored halo appeared in front of him. Before his eyes was a hollow and hidden space. Shockingly, there was a jade box with ancient patterns on it. The jade box was still flowing with jade light, and it hadn't changed in the slightest because of the passage of time. The lines on it were very mysterious. It seemed that it was not a simple carving. Swish! At this time, Tian was not in a hurry to see what was inside the box. No matter what it was, to be able to hide it here, he believed that it should be the Du family's most precious treasure. Tian did not expect a small family like the Du family to find a second treasure. He directly put the jade box and the scroll into his storage pouch. Without any hesitation, he fled out of the valley. Right after he left, a series of angry roars came from the valley. Rumbling sounds rang out one after another. It was obvious that the master and disciple had completely broken down with the Du family and had started fighting. He didn't know what kind of expression they would have when they realized that the thing they had fought so hard for had long disappeared without a trace after the battle. Of course, all of this had nothing to do with Tian. After taking the items, he left the valley without any obstructions. He didn't continue to return to Pei City. Instead, he took advantage of the cover of the night and rushed towards the direction of the southern barbarian lands, far away from Pei City. Moving as fast as the wind and as fast as lightning, he had traveled more than 1,000 miles in one night. Moreover, he flew past the peace town where he had met Hua Wenwu and entered the continuous mountain range. He had truly left the human world. After entering the forest, he randomly found a cave and stopped inside. He did not continue to rush forward. Riding the demon wind was not slow. but it consumed a lot of demon chi. After one night, he had already used up a lot of demon chi in his body. It just so happened that he wanted to see what kind of treasure was in the jade box that he had obtained from the Dew family. Everyone had curiosity, and he was no exception. Moreover, there was a high possibility that the box contained a treasure that even he wanted. Now that he was far away from the secular world, there was no one to disturb him. This could be said to be the best time to investigate. Pada. He took out the jade box from his storage pouch and held it in his hand. He carefully looked at it and found that the lines on the box were not beautiful flowers, but a kind of strange restriction. There is indeed something strange about it. After discovering the restriction, D. Shirtian's eyes flashed. He held the jade box in his right hand, and with a thought, a strong demon chi immediately bombarded the jade box like a roaring river. Because he was afraid that there was something strange about the restriction, he used almost 90% of his cultivation for this attack. The remaining 10% was used as a precaution. Pada. After the restriction on the jade box, sensed the demonic chi emitted by the sakura, a layer of rich golden light immediately appeared on the surface of the jade box. The runes on the jade box seemed to have a life of their own as they quickly swam. Obviously, the restriction on the jade box had been triggered. However, the moment this restriction appeared, it was like an inflated balloon under the tyrannical demonic chi. With a pop sound, it was completely shattered. The strength of the restriction is only at the foundation establishment level. He inwardly pondered. Looking at the restriction, it didn't seem to be a powerful restriction. As long as one had a foundation establishment level cultivation, they would be able to break the restriction on the outside. His cultivation far surpassed the foundation establishment level and was very close to the core formation stage. Breaking this restriction was a piece of cake for him. However, he didn't feel joy because he had broken the restriction. After calming his mind, he opened the jade box. In an instant, strands of light burst out from the box like a tide. The green light filled the entire cave in the blink of an eye. If he had not casually placed a few restrictions at the entrance of the cave before he entered, the treasure light would have rushed out of the cave in an instant and soared into the sky. Bursts of light burst forth for a full 15 minutes before gradually dissipating. It quickly converged above the jade box. In an instant, a figure was condensed from the jade light. This person stood in the air above the jade box with a bull sitting below him. He held a wine gourd in his hand and happily drank several mouthfuls of wine. He smiled and said, "Although this wine immortal couldn't see who opened the box and obtained the treasures I left behind, this immortal must say that the things I placed in the box are all treasures. They are the crystallization of this immortal's life's work. This is the wine god's secret scripture. It contains all the wine recipes I collected from all corners of the world over the countless years. It also contains all the spirit wines I personally created. If anyone can brew all the spirit wines in this secret scripture, then congratulations, you will become one of the few unrivaled powerhouses in the world. Obtaining my wine god's secret scripture can also be said to have obtained my legacy. However, this immortal does not wish to accept any disciple. Thus, you don't need to recognize any master. You only need to agree to one of my conditions, and you can obtain all of my treasures. Hee, don't say that this immortal is cheating you. The condition is in the wine god's secret scripture. If you agree, then you can imprint your soul on it. At that time, you will naturally understand. You can see it as a transaction. The reward is the wine god's secret scripture and my wine god's gourd. If you don't agree and touch the secret scripture, then presumably the power of the wine god's curse is so powerful that even those old farts won't dare to easily try it. Haha, the purple gold continent, this great sky, this immortal has been here before. This immortal has been free and unfettered. Life and death are illusions. Who is the master of the ups and downs? No regrets. As soon as he finished speaking, the figure sitting on top of the bull suddenly shattered into countless fragments and disappeared once again. The situation just now seemed as if it had never happened. It was extremely strange. Could that be the legendary primordial spirit remnant image just now? The last words left by the wine immortal? Tion saw the scene shatter, but his eyes fell into contemplation. When the wine immortal appeared at the beginning, it really gave him a fright. Now, after listening, he understood the meaning of it. Obviously, the things in this jade box had long been in the wine immortal's calculations. The restriction outside looked very easy to break, but in fact there was still a gap between heaven and earth to get the treasure. At this time, looking at the jade box again, there were two things quietly placed inside. One was a jade green gourd. The gourd was flowing with jade green light. At a glance, one could tell that it was not an ordinary item. From a gourd, one could actually smell a trace of strange wine fragrance. Unsurprisingly, this gourd was the wine god's gourd that the wine god had mentioned in the message. Looking at the bottom of the gourd, there was an ancient jade book. This ancient book had a few huge ancient characters, wine god's secret scripture. These ancient characters seemed to have a life of their own, constantly flashing with a trace of jade light. In the eyes of people, there was a strange temptation, and they could not help but want to grab it in their hands. However, Tion did not dare to reach out his hand easily. He did not even dare to touch it. The wine deity who left behind the treasure, judging from his demeanor, is definitely not an ordinary person. Perhaps he was a great divine ability of the ancient times. The treasure left behind by such a person is obviously precious. However, although the treasure is right in front of us, it is not so easy to take it. Tion secretly sighed in his heart. For the wine god's hand, he had to say that he admired the value of the wine god's secret scripture. It was almost immeasurable. Getting it and brewing all kinds of spirit wine, it could make people get endless benefits, and it could almost lay the foundation for immortality. It could be comparable to the Pill Tao statue. However, if you want to get it, it means that you must accept the conditions left by the wine immortal. Perhaps it is a transaction, a task. It looks unremarkable, but think about it a little. Who is the wine immortal, his task, his conditions? How could it be simple and easy? Maybe, if you are not careful, your life will be over. At this time, Tion could be said to be wandering around, his heart constantly flashing various thoughts, and it was difficult to make a choice. On the one hand, there was an immeasurable wine god's secret scripture. The preciousness was really too moving. It was difficult to give up. On the other hand, there was an unknown condition. If you accept it, you don't know what kind of danger there will be. To be continued. If you want to know what happened, please go to www.chidian.com. More chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 202. From the last words left by Wine Immortal, it could be seen that his nature was very free and easy. His life's efforts could be regarded as a kind of inheritance, but he did not. He just regarded it as a transaction, and the price of the transaction was the crystallization of his efforts, the wine god's secret sutra, and the wine god's gourd. It could also be said that Wine Immortal left him a difficult choice. Pick it up or give it up. Picking it up was tantamount to accepting the conditions left by Wine Immortal. Perhaps this condition was quite difficult as ordinary people wanting to climb to the sky. Giving it up was tantamount to giving up a great opportunity to make his own cultivation and even the surrounding forces develop greatly. Such an opportunity would never come often. Perhaps if he missed it this time, there would never be a second time. The Myriad Demon Valley was known as the Myriad Demon Valley, but in the valley, there were no other subordinates who could really be called as powerful, except for the Sakura himself. According to the usual development, it would take at least hundreds or thousands of years to form a considerable strength, but it would take such a long time. At that time, it would be too late to wait until it was too late. The southern barbarian lands have been in such a big mess before. Thousands of rogue cultivators had died in it, including the Leaf family and a powerhouse in the late core formation stage. He did not think that the immortal cultivation world would erase these things at will. Moreover, during this period of time in the secular world, he also heard about the heavenly demon mystery land. Most of the cultivators were almost busy for the opening of the mystery land this time. He guessed that the reason why the southern barbarian lands could have more than a year of peace after killing thousands of row cultivators was probably because of the opening of the heavenly demon mystery land. If the matter of the mystery land was over, the southern barbarian lands would appear in the eyes of those immortal cultivation sects again. At that time, needless to say, there would be a terrible storm coming head-on. In order to be able to stand tall in the future storms, they had to continuously increase their strength and develop their forces in this short period of time. They had to have the strength to be fearless in the storm and even stand up to it as an equal. Only in this way could they turn the situation around and let out a cry that belonged to the demon clan. There were no alchemists in the demon race. They were extremely unfamiliar with alchemy and could not dabble in it. The demon race, which had almost declined to the point of extinction, had such an inheritance just like the human race. Most of them relied on themselves to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, as well as the essence of the sun and moon, day after day, year after year to strengthen their demonic powers. After 1,000 years, the achievements they had made could not even be compared to the achievements of immortal cultivators who had cultivated for hundreds of years. The key was that human immortal cultivators knew how to support and make use of all kinds of elixirs, Dharma treasures, and Dharma treasures. Often, a single Dharma treasure could offset the difference of several levels. Therefore, if the demon race wanted to catch up and rise again, reflection was necessary. If he couldn't refine pills, brewing wine might be another path. If he could obtain the contents of the wine god's secret sutra, it would be immeasurably beneficial to his future development. Wine immortal, you really gave me a big problem. Shirtyan's eyes had been staring at the two treasures in the box. After a long time, he shook his head and muttered to himself. However, in an instant, two bright lights burst out of his eyes. His face showed a firm look, and he said, "However, since the opportunity is in front of me, I have no reason not to accept it." After pondering for a long time, he finally made up his mind. No matter what the future was, what was in front of him was the most important thing. No one knew what would happen in the future. His hand stretched forward inch by inch. Shirtyan naturally operated the demon chi quickly. A wave of demon chi condensed outside his body, forming a cloud of demon chi. He wanted to try and see if he could resist the so-called wine god's curse. His right hand was placed on top of that jade ancient book. Immediately, a burst of warm and cool aura was transmitted to his hand, making people feel comfortable. Wine Immortal also didn't speak empty words. Sure enough, the middle finger that Sakura placed on the jade mirror emitted a burst of piercing pain without warning, and a drop of essence blood immediately dripped on it. Then he saw that the jade mirror quickly absorbed the blood essence. Suddenly, it emitted thousands of jade light. The jade light did not spread, but quickly condensed in front of him. It strangely formed a strange seal. After the seal was formed, it turned into a streamer of light and directly penetrated the demon chi outside Shirtyan's body. It rushed into his body in one fell swoop. Then a message emerged in his mind. This message was not big. In just a moment, it had been completely absorbed by him. When he opened his eyes, there was a strange light flashing in them. He said, "Demon Suppression Valley, where is this place?" However, he just said a little, just shook his head and smiled bitterly. Looking at the gourd and jade mirror in the box, he shook his head and said, "This time I got into big trouble. These powerful people are all old foxes. When they do things, they really don't know what to do. Even if I don't want to go to that Demon Suppression Valley, I can't. Forget it. These are all things for the future. I want to see what benefits this deal can bring me." Without thinking about anything else, he reached for the jade mirror in the box and gently opened it. He saw that this jade mirror was made of an unknown, mysterious ancient jade. Other than the two front and back covers, there was only a single piece of jade paper in the middle. Other than that, there were no other pages. This did not make Shirtyan feel strange. From the information just now, He knew that this wine god's mystery sutra should be called the wine god's treasure mirror. There were all kinds of wine recipes recorded in it. The names of those wine recipes were already known in his mind. Moreover, he could reabsorb other wine recipes and add them to the treasure mirror, making the wine recipes in the treasure mirror more abundant. Each page was a wine recipe for a kind of spirit wine. At the beginning, he could only see the first page. If he wanted to see the next page, he had to brew the spirit wine recorded on the previous page and pour the spirit wine on the treasure mirror. Naturally, the wine recipe for the next spirit wine would appear in the treasure mirror, and there would be more records of the spirit wine in the treasure mirror. In the treasure mirror, there were a total of 108 kinds of spirit wine recipes. Opening the first page, he saw that the first page of the treasure mirror recorded a wine called dark ice jade fire wine. Take a kind of spirit fruit called dark ice jade fire fruit that grows in hot or cold places, add wine grass, and 100 kinds of spirit medicine, and brew a kind of spirit wine according to the method recorded in the wine recipe. If this spirit wine was brewed and drunk, not only would it have a unique taste, but would also help in refining the body. It would allow the body to be constantly tempered in the alternation of ice and fire, and it could also increase one's cultivation. Every time it was drunk, it could increase one's cultivation by about 10 years. Of course, if one drank too much, the later effects would slowly weaken. The main effect of this spirit wine was to refine the body. It could strengthen the body and increase one's foundation and potential. It was not an exaggeration to call it spirit wine. This kind of wine was suitable for people who had not become immortals. Dark ice jade fire wine, what a good spirit wine. If it was brewed, how much would the strength of my myriad demon valley increase? This is only the first type. The rest will definitely be more amazing. It seems that this transaction is not too bad. Tion nodded in his heart. This kind of spirit wine that could increase one's cultivation was what he wanted the most. It could increase one's strength more effectively, and it seemed to be better than the ordinary monkey wine he drank before. He could not help but look forward to the next spirit wine. He gently stroked the wine god's treasure mirror. After absorbing his blood essence, the mirror had a trace of connection with him and could be absorbed into his body like a magic treasure. Such a treasure was naturally more comfortable with him. With a thought, he absorbed the mirror into the spirit demon palace and let it float in the spirit demon palace. After doing this, he looked at the other jade gourd. For this gourd, his heart was even more eager. This wine god's gourd could be said to be the treasure of the wine immortal. However, it was worth mentioning that this gourd did not have any attack power, nor was it a magic treasure used to fight, but it was a spirit treasure. According to the information left by the wine immortal, he knew that this gourd was indeed born. The wine immortal also accidentally saw a gourd vine on the cliff of a dangerous place, and such a jade gourd was formed on the vine. She took a liking to it and plucked it. Unexpectedly, it was really fated with him. This gourd had no other ability, and it was not like the immortal beheading gourd. It had only one ability, brewing and storing wine. There were unconnected spaces in the gourd. These spaces were used to store wine, and each space was used to store one kind. Even if hundreds of different spirit wines were filled, there was no need to worry about mixing them together. Therefore, it could be said to be the best utensil for storing wine. Moreover, the gourd itself had the function of brewing wine. Put various materials in it, hit the spirit art, and it could brew on its own. Not only could the brewing time be reduced, but it could also speed up the passage of time in the gourd under the control of the owner. The gourd had a strong aura, and when used to store wine, it could increase the wine effect of the spirit wine. It should be known that wine was different from medicinal pills. If medicinal pills were kept for a long time, the medicinal properties would be lost. If they were not kept well, the medicinal effects would be greatly reduced. But wine was different. Wine was brewed for a long time, and the wine in the wine would be more mellow and strong. There was a saying, wine was more fragrant the longer it was kept. Some wines, hidden underground for 100 years, may only become a drop in a jar, but this drop was the essence of the wine, and it was difficult to buy. The gourd could speed up the time inside, and nourish with aura. The older the wine would be, and the stronger the wine effect would become. It could be said that although this wine god's gourd had no other effect, it was a supreme treasure for people who loved wine and winemakers. To be continued. If you want to know how to follow, please go to www.chijian.com. More chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 203. The wine immortal did not leave a mark in it, and De Chertion easily collected the gourd as his own spirit treasure. However, this was only the initial sacrificial refining. In the future, it would need to be deepened slowly until the complete sacrificial refining was done. Only then could it be said that he really got this spirit treasure. Of course, with his current cultivation base, it was impossible to completely refine it. He could only slowly use time to hone it in the future. Keep it in the body, put it in the demon furnace, and use the demon fire to constantly refine it, so that the mark in the gourd would continue to integrate with the gourd. This was a painstaking effort, so he was not in a hurry. Anyway, as long as the initial sacrificial refining was done, all the functions of the gourd could be used. After a careful exploration, he found that there were really spaces separated from each other in the gourd. Now, there were only 2 in the gourd, but as long as he wanted to, he could recreate a new space. The key was that you had to fill the empty space in front of you with spirit wine. Fill different spirit wines, and new spaces would be born in the gourd. After De Chertion saw the scene in the gourd, he could not help but secretly say to the wine immortal in his heart. The gourd was empty, not even half a drop of spirit wine. What was thrown to him was just a blank wine gourd. If the wine immortal casually filled it with a spirit wine, maybe he could get great benefits from it. It seems that everything depends on my own struggle. Now I don't have it. In the future, I will fill the gourd with a variety of different spirit wines, so that the wine immortal gourd will become worthy of its name. Socrates thought inwardly. However, when he thought about wine, he couldn't help but be delighted. If it was spirit wine, he really did have a type on him. He had over 100 gourds of Little Devil wine with him. These years, he had drunk quite a few of them. Otherwise, the amount would be even more. Without thinking much, he quickly took out all the monkey wine on his body, and then took out the wine immortal gourd. The jade light on the gourd continued to flow. Holding the jade gourd, he turned the gourd upside down, facing the ordinary gourd that had been completely opened on the ground, and lightly shouted, "Absorb!" The green jade gourd glowed with green jade spirit light, and a powerful suction force came from the gourd. In an instant, hundreds of streams of wine gushed out from the ordinary gourds and were quickly devoured by the green jade gourd. The green jade gourd didn't reject any of the wine that was thrown at it. In the blink of an eye, it had swallowed all of the wine in the green jade gourd. Placing his consciousness on the jasper gourd, Zhang Xian saw that there was a space within the jasper gourd filled with golden wine. It looked exceptionally moving. A trace of spirit energy slowly entered the wine from the gourd, slowly nourishing the monkey wine. When De Chertion saw this, he changed the time and the space with the monkey wine to 10 times out of the outside world. In other words, 10 years in the gourd was only 1 year outside. 1 to 10 was the limit that De Chertion could achieve now. If he wanted to improve it further, he had to strengthen the connection with the gourd and improve his own cultivation. Well, it's time to leave. Although I have an inexplicable task this time, I'm not in a hurry. I've also gained a lot. With the recipe of the dark azure ice wine and the wine immortal gourd, I have an absolute advantage in brewing wine. Next, I should pay attention to the whereabouts of the ice fire fruit. It's better to brew this spiritual wine as soon as possible. He suddenly stood up and tidied up the things in the cave. After secretly estimating his harvest this time, he also planned to collect the ice fire fruits as soon as possible and immediately brew them. After all, in his opinion, only when he could brew the wine would it be considered a real harvest. Otherwise, everything else was just talk on paper. After resting for a while in the cave, he recovered the demon spirit consumed by riding the demon wind. After removing the restriction in front of the cave, he looked at the sky and saw that it was almost evening. Without hesitation, He rode on the demon wind and continued to rush towards the direction of the southern barbarians. As they had already entered the forest, there were few people. Therefore, when Sakura rode on the demon wind, he had even less scruples. The entire journey could be said to be as fast as lightning. He hurried with all his strength. When he was tired, he took a rest for a while to recover his demon spirit, and then continued to ride the demon wind. He didn't stop day and night, and his speed was so fast that it only took him 5 days to arrive outside the southern wilderness. Standing on top of a steep mountain peak outside of southern barbarian, Sakura swept his gaze forward. The huge southern barbarian was impressively presented in front of him. Southern barbarian was shrouded in fog all year round. In the haziness, there was a mysterious color. The mountains were one after another undulating. Looking down, it was difficult to see the end at a glance. Southern wilderness, I'm back again. A trace of unusual color flashed in D. Shurtian's eyes, and it became deep in an instant. Faintly, there was an inexplicable feeling. The southern wilderness was not the place where he was born, but it had the foundation of everything he had. Here, it was the real beginning of his contact with the demon clan. It was also the Real let him recognize his own identity. Unknowingly, the southern wilderness had become his home in this strange purple gold continent. This was an inexplicable sense of belonging. Swish! After silently watching the southern wilderness for a long time, he moved his body and rolled up a black demon wind. He directly swept down the mountain and rushed to the southern wilderness. In a few breaths, his whole body had entered the southern wilderness. The familiar breath of the southern wilderness immediately made D. Shurtian's chest surge with an irrepressible excitement. His body shook, and in a layer of demon chi, he turned into a pitch-black black tiger. The fur on his body was black and shiny, and the sharp claws on his 4 tiger claws were like sharp knife hooks, shining with a metallic black luster. When he stepped on the ground, a huge force collided, and the ground under his feet suddenly cracked. At the side of his mouth, the tiger whiskers were like steel needles, stretching straight to both sides. The purple king mark on his forehead was constantly pulsating like a purple flame, constantly spitting out endless pressure. The tiger tail behind him swung powerfully, whipping a big tree. The tree was abruptly broken and flew out horizontally. The tiger tail was even stronger than the steel whip. The tiger's body shook, and the majestic tiger's might was like a tide that constantly swept in all directions. His body was also violently expanding, growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Boom, boom, boom. 1 zhong, 2 zhong, 3 zhong. Almost in the blink of an eye, D. Shurtian's body had expanded to a terrifying height of 15 zhong. The surrounding trees were crushed by this huge body. The overbearing momentum of the King of Beasts was even more vigorous, and his momentum had increased a lot. Ayo! Raising his head and taking a deep breath, a tiger's roar that shook the sky was overbearingly spat out, rushing into the sky and covering the entire southern barbarian land. Without using a sound attack, just relying on his own momentum of the King of Beasts, the tiger's roar seemed to have come out of nowhere. It was full of infinite majesty, and, faintly, there was a kind of shout that announced his return to the entire southern barbarian land. The spiritual energy in the southern barbarian land was abundant, and under the imperceptible influence, ordinary beasts could become spirit beasts. However, such an opportunity was also rare, and there were many ordinary birds and beasts here. As soon as this tiger's roar sounded, whether it was spirit beasts or ordinary birds and beasts, almost at the same time, the fear from the bottom of their hearts made them all fall to the ground, showing a worshipping expression in the direction of D. Shurtian. Their bodies were like chaff, constantly trembling. This was the return of the king. In the southern barbarian land, many ordinary beasts felt the strong confidence and overbearing aura from this tiger's roar, and faintly, a trace of fear emerged. King, the King of Beasts. This was D. Shurtian announcing his return. How? In the south, a clear crane's cry cut through the sky, echoing the tiger's roar. This was the red-crowned crane, king expressing its goodwill to welcome him. Wah! An unusually hoarse, harsh, and unpleasant crow's cry followed by the lion's roar and the black ape king's roar. Every sound expressed a kind of joy for Di Shirtian's return. For a time, the roars of the king of beasts in the southern barbarian land rose and fell one after another. It made the entire southern barbarian land unusually lively, and it also made countless weak spirit beasts and beasts secretly terrified. Di Shirtian left the southern barbarian land for a year and a half, and he finally came back. Compared to that year, his cultivation is even stronger. At this time, in the Hundred Flowers Valley, the elegant and luxurious woman who had been sitting by the window habitually opened her eyes and looked at the edge of the southern barbarian land. The Hundred Flowers' essence chi around her was like colorful ribbons, which did not stop and quickly entered her body. The flowers in the valley naturally emitted traces of essence chi for the girl to cultivate. At this time, she opened her eyes, and a faint curiosity and inexplicable smile appeared in her eyes. Obviously, she was also very happy that Di Shirtian could come back. "Sister, listen, Brother Di is back." "That's great." Zhu knew that Brother Di would definitely not leave the southern barbarian land alone. He has been out for so many years, and he must have encountered a lot of interesting things. "I'll go to his myriad demon valley now." A vermilion bird chirped and landed on the young girl's shoulder, jumping around excitedly. "Well, go ahead. By the way, help me invite him to the valley again." The girl did not stop it. Instead, she nodded with a chuckle, stretched out her slender fingers, and gently knocked on the vermilion bird's head. "Got it." The vermilion bird flapped its wings, turned into a stream of light, and flew quickly to the myriad demon valley. It was in a hurry, and it seemed to be a little impatient. Seeing this, the girl could not help but shake her head helplessly. She closed her beautiful eyes and continued to absorb the Hundred Flowers' essence chi. In the myriad demon valley. "Brother," this is Brother's voice. Brother is back. Little White, who was cultivating, suddenly opened her eyes and jumped out of the cave. She listened carefully to the tiger's roar, and a look of incomparable surprise appeared in her eyes. King is back. King is finally back." In the valley, Chihua, Baiyu, and the others were so excited that their eyes were a little wet. They ran out of their cave residences and quickly ran to the entrance of the valley. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 204. In the myriad demon valley, Chi Hua and the others live in different places. When they heard the tiger roar, no matter what they were doing, they all rushed out of their cave residences. Chi Hua, Baiyu Yuan Tian, In Kong, and Bai Susu were all very excited. They rushed to the entrance of the valley as fast as they could. They met in front of the tunnel. "Boss Ox, you've also come out of seclusion." Baiyu nodded and said when he saw Chi Hua, who was dressed in red and whose nose was constantly spewing out sparks as he breathed. At this time, Baiyu was already silvery white. He was as tall as 2 or 3 adult wolves combined. He was extremely huge. Standing where he was, he exuded a kind of proud and aloof aura. He was cold and seldom talked about other things. Chi Hua was a natural variant. After being taught the secret method of demonic cultivation by Di Shirtian, his strength improved rapidly. In the myriad demon valley, he had always been the strongest among Baiyu, In Kong, and the others. Therefore, they all lined up according to their strength. Chi Hua was the first. He was a bull, so the people in the valley called him Boss Ox. After him was Yuan Tian. Yuan Tian's aptitude and potential were second only to Chi Hua among the demons. Before he met Di Shirtian, he had drunk a lot of spiritual wine like the monkey wine. Although most of the power in the wine was wasted at that time, a small part of it was integrated into his body and hidden. Now that he had stepped on the path of demonic cultivation, the potential that he had accumulated was slowly unearthed. His cultivation speed was only second to that of Chi Hua. Therefore, he was called Yuan Lauer. After him was not in Kong but Baiyu. When Baiyu was on Tiger Hill, he was the wolf king of thousands of wolves. He had developed his own spirituality. He was the rarest howling moon wolf among wolves. He had an extremely outstanding sensitivity to moonlight. In the moonlight, his strength could almost be greatly enhanced, and his combat strength could be increased by half. It was the easiest for him to absorb the essence of the moon to cultivate, and his cultivation speed was not slow at all. Thus, he sat on the seat of the third brother. After that, it was In Kong. He was a bird, and the eagle was the king of the sky. He had a pair of eagle claws and iron wings. He was incomparably strong. When they fought, occupying the air was equivalent to occupying a huge advantage. Therefore, he was ranked fourth. As for Bai Su, she wasn't weak. She could give birth to her own spirituality, and her aptitude was one of the best among the Yao race. However, compared to the others, she could only be ranked last. She was the fifth sister. Second brother, third brother, fourth brother, fifth sister. From a tiger's roar just now, it was definitely King's voice. How could I not come out to welcome him? Chi Hua nodded and looked in the direction of the tiger's roar. His eyes were full of respect. Thinking back to when he had fought against Zhong Yunfei to save him in the Nameless Valley, his loyalty to Di Shirtian deepened. That's right. King has been away from the Myriad Demon Valley for more than a year. From the tiger's roar, King's cultivation has become even more profound. Now that King is back, we have a backbone. I want King to taste the monkey wine I brewed as soon as he comes back. Yuan Tian jumped up and down happily. He held a wine gourd in his hand. A faint fragrance wafted out of the gourd. Bai Su was also shocked. Strange colors flashed in her eyes. You are loyal. However, your king is relaxed. He put me in the valley as a protector. Now that he's back, I'll settle the score with him. How should I settle the score? She was dressed in a snow-white palace dress with a ribbon in her hand. Her hair was casually tied with a wooden hairpin. She exuded a strange charm that made people not dare to look at her. She held Little White in her hand and glanced at Chi Hua and the others. She walked over step by step. As she walked, she said something that was full of resentment. Who else could it be but Baihu? However, what she said was different for what she felt in her heart. She didn't know why, but when she heard the tiger's roar, her heart, who was originally meditating, started to beat wildly for no reason. An inexplicable feeling of excitement and nervousness appeared in her heart. It was very strange, and it made her unconsciously feel panicked and at a loss of what to do. What the hell is going on? Do I really care about him? No, definitely not. It must be because Di Shirtian is back. I could be free and leave this place. Yes, it must be so. She secretly found a reason for her feelings. Only then did she slowly become certain. Di Shirtian is back. Judging from the sound, it seems that his strength is much stronger than it was a year ago. His strength has increased so fast. In just over a year, I have just stabilized the inner core that I condensed. Is he a genius among the demon cultivators? In a cave residence in the southern barbarian land, a cold and beautiful woman in a colorful dress slowly opened her eyes. There was a faint flash of strange light in her eyes. A trace of curiosity unconsciously emerged in her heart. Di Shirtian's tiger's roar could be said to have shocked the entire southern barbarian land. The southern barbarian land, which had been quiet for more than a year, seemed to have become lively. I'm back. I'm finally back. Di Shirtian roared and only felt that his whole body seemed to be incomparably comfortable. His body shook and shrank back to the size of an ordinary tiger. He looked at the direction and quickly swept toward the location of the Myriad Demon Valley. I don't know what changes have happened in the valley since I left for a long time. What is the cultivation level of Chi Hua and the others? And how many bottles of the monkey wine have been brewed? How is Little White? And by who? She should still be in the valley. While running forward, he secretly thought in his heart, guessing what changes would happen in the myriad demon valley during this time. Of course, the most important thing was Little White and his subordinates in the valley. These were his future family and foundation. In the future, he would have to rely on these to make a living. Although he did not ride the demon wind, Shurtian's speed was naturally not slow. His 4 strong and powerful limbs continued to leap forward. Each leap was more than 100 feet. In the forest, no creature could see his figure clearly. All they could see were the afterimages left behind by him after he had passed by. His rapid running caused a gust of wind to surround him. This gust of wind seemed to be able to faintly lift his weight and make his body even lighter. His speed became faster. Every time he leaped out, he seemed to be flying forward with the wind. The more he ran, the faster he became. This seemed to be an instinct. While running, Sakura let go of the homecoming mentality in his heart. This also seemed to make his mind sublimate. He instinctively leaped forward and let a wisp of wind power revolve around his body, feeling the wind that was everywhere between heaven and earth. He did not know why, but he instinctively felt very close to the wind. It was as if he wanted to merge with the wind around him. What a wonderful feeling. At this moment, he really seemed to be incarnated into the wind. It blew forward. At this time, if anyone saw it, they would find that Shurtian's speed had almost reached an incredible level. His whole body, which was hundreds of feet away a moment ago, mysteriously appeared in front of him in the next moment. The distance between them was as if he had directly teleported. It was really strange. It was as if he had really been incarnated into the wind and shuttled through. Shurtian could not help but be immersed in this wonderful feeling of communicating with the wind. He did not feel the passage of time at all. After an unknown period of time, his mind suddenly shook, and he broke away from the wind. When he looked around again, he unexpectedly appeared in the sky above the myriad demon valley. Below him was Chi Hua and the others. Bang! He jumped down from the air. His body swayed, and he returned to his human form. A black robe was draped over his body. He waved his long sleeves and landed on the ground. A strong, majestic aura naturally exuded from his body. It spread out in all directions. The purple king pattern on his forehead flickered, and supreme majesty filled his body. No one dared to look at him. Subordinate Chi Hua welcomes the king back to the myriad demon valley. When Chi Hua, Baiyu, and the others saw Shurtian landing, one by one, they were excited and greeted him respectfully in unison. The most noteworthy thing was that they did not speak the language of beasts, but the language of humans. "Brother, you're finally back. I miss you so much," Little White called out tenderly. She jumped out of Baiyu's arms and pounced on Shurtian. He stretched out his hand and hugged Little White. He could not help but show a trace of gentleness at the corner of his mouth. Blood kinship flowed in his heart. He patted Little White's little head. "Brother also misses Little White." Shurtian smiled faintly and nodded. He then looked at Chi Hua and the others who were kneeling in front of him. Traces of strange light shot out from his eyes and swept across them. He said loudly, "Good, good, good." 3 words came out of his mouth in a row. It showed how happy he was in his heart. "I did not misjudge you, and you did not let me down. In less than 2 years, all of you have opened up the meridians in your body and opened up the demon abode. From now on, you can also follow me to fight for a glorious era that belongs to us." Shurtian was not stingy with his praise, refining the hyoid bone and speaking the human language. This was the best symbol of a demon beast. Chi Hua and the others had all advanced to demon beast and opened up the demon abode. Of course, the demon abode they opened up could not be compared to Shurtian's heaven-defying, heaven-grade demon abode. But their quality was not low. They had not weak potential. "King, the reason why our subordinates were able to break through in such a short period of time was because of the monkey wine brewed by Second Brother. Without the monkey wine, I'm afraid that it would take at least 10 years to open up the demon abode." Chi's voice was like thunder. It was a loud voice. "Good. Yuan Tian has contributed greatly to brewing the monkey wine. Wait a moment. I will reward you." This time, all of you can break through to Demon Beast. As the king, I will not be stingy. With your strength, you can also refine artifacts. Each of you will be given one to protect yourself. Di Tian looked at Chi Hua and the others, his heart full of satisfaction. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.